every New Ager's wet dream. It's perfect. It's very psychic, hive-minded, and very happy, just like everybody's past life memories on alien planets that are all perfect, all the perfect alien planets, like the Nordics, where everybody's spiritual, telepathic, and there's no crime, there's no religion, there's no issues. It's the same kind of vibe. They just say it's perfect. Now, if this is a disinformation tag from demons trying to convince you to be a New Ager, Gnostic, whatever, this is exactly what I would do.
All right. Sethlehem, part 3.
Hello.
Get after it, my friend. Get after it.
All right. Well, I guess I should warm up the audience with a clear warning. Please, I'm begging you, don't watch this. Don't watch it at all unless you have watched episodes 1 with us, or ideally part 2 as well, because it builds the foundation, the bedrock of what we're talking about today. I'm continuing from there. Basically, this is a reincarnation debunk in my own little fruitcake way, that I don't think, I'm pretty sure is original in most aspects, aside from some details. But the bedrock that I want to lay the foundation out for, in case you haven't watched it and you're going to ignore my claims or my requests here, is that there's a few things established in the first part and second part that builds here effectively. One is my main theory, which is the whole vision control of the demonic realm, or the self-declared guides, ascended masters / higher selves, who guide us through the astral on our out-of-body things. I theorize in that the entire astral realm is controlled simulations, which they often, in many direct and indirect ways, admit to being able to create simulations that are completely fake. They admit to it so flatly that you can't say it's not possible, but some people might say they disagree with my deceptive model overall, saying it's all fake, but that's my belief. There's a lot of evidence. So that is something established. And also, this vision control extends to what we're going to talk about today, which is past life memories. In part 2, there are examples, and I'll cover more later, of how spirits admittedly will give people memories of other people and attach it to them, and they will feel and relive it like it's their own, with full emotional connection to it as if it's their own. This is admitted by spirit guides and past life therapists. In part 2 material, watch it or don't. So these memories can be downloaded, or the astral can be full autonomous and still simulated. So if that's simulated, remote viewing, which I think is the same concept here, multiple NDEs, any channeled psychically derived information, the Akashic records, etc., all of it, I believe, is simulation meant to deceive us, and we consent to that when we do divination, which God tells us not to in the Bible for a reason. And he lays out some verses about false visions quite often. There's at least 10 of them that say false visions, false dreams, false divination. Warns us of it directly, 1 Kings 22 especially. So yeah, a lot of biblical backing for that. And these downloads can be information. These downloads can be full-blown memories, whatever they decide, depending on how open you are in allowing it. So that's something established that we need to have laid down. 2 is the demons of our world, I believe, are part of a hive mind Borg. They have imagine them as best as a etheric AI, a conscious AI that is basically, yes, there's individual demons. There's as many as Nephilim died in the flood, however many that is, couple 100 million probably is my guess. And they're connected to a hive mind with the fallen, and they can instantly share information, essentially like an AI computer. And that's how they carry out these deceptions and carry out these false prophecies, because they are collecting data like our phones, but on a max level, connecting to our thoughts, our memories. They can connect to all our thoughts and memories, read and write onto them. But I do think people with the Holy Spirit covered in the blood might have some degree of protection from these things, but that is not most people on the planet. So I think most people on the planet have their data, aka their memories, thoughts, whatever, insecurities, etc., all available to this hive mind Borg, which then uses that to craft certain narratives around it and give us information that they know we will be receptive to, such as past life memories, catering to something that we might desire specifically. That is often seen to be the case. So instant sharing of information too. So that is important because that's how they carry out some of these things. Another layer is consent law, and people need to understand consent law, and how, the short version is, the more you sin, which is God's definition of sin, not your own, the more you are opening yourself up to demonic influence, harassment, etc. And they strategically decide how much harassment or influence they want to give based on what actions you're doing and what they can use you for. It is not just all monstrous and feral and random. It's very specific and catered to uh, who you are and what you're doing. And if you're an asset, they will cater certain narratives and concepts to you. And it might make you feel good and make you happy and all these things, and not attack you if you're an asset or they want you to be one, stuff like that. So those are all established things that are talked about in the first two episodes. And we need to keep that in mind for what we're about to get into, which I'm going to start off basically just declaring what I believe to be the explanation for the majority of reincarnation memories. Um, and then I will get into lore and examples, and it'll get exponentially crazier as time goes. So bear with me. I talk fast, and I don't slow down. So bear with me. And Ben, if you have any questions, you know to interrupt me and slap me at any point. Okay?
Yeah, what the one thing just before you get too deep,
Yeah.
why do you think this is so attractive to people?
Well, one of many examples is usually like if you're reliving a past life memory, typically it's through regression. A lot of them are from children getting them, and that's what we're going to talk about first. But the regression thing, it's like usually you get a memory that makes you look like you were a badass in the past life, or
Gotcha.
you were super cool or important or special. I have a whole 20 pages on examples of people remembering they were a Egyptian high priestess or high
Right, like
priest.
everybody's freaking royalty, right?
And they're usually all like in the past life, they're like a spiritual medium, or they were
Yeah,
something, or they were a monk, or they were some sort of healer. Like it's not always. There's some mundane ones, but the majority aren't mundane. And statistically, most should be mundane, boring lives. And a lot of them are just special snowflakes who happen to be super spiritual. And so one, it makes you feel special. And two, it's an experience, and we're in a spiritual drought collectively as many nations, because we've been secularized and technologically, manipulated in so many ways that we've been starved off from like spiritual encounters.
yeah.
And not everybody, but the vast majority of the population. So whenever we get a hint of anything going, oh, it's real, the signs lied to me, it's not all fake and made up, then it's like, well, actually, the Bible tells us it's real, and it is very real. It's a very supernatural thing. But being real doesn't mean it's positive, and being presenting as positive doesn't mean it's actually benevolent, which is if I'm going to deceive you, I'm going to act like I'm your friend. I'm going to be nice to you. I'm going to tell you nice things. That's how you deceive people.
I'm
So
from the government and I'm here to help.
yeah, no, exactly. It's the
Yeah,
same idea. It's a lot more elusive with the spiritual psyops than the physical ones, which are kind of more obvious and intentionally so at times. But
right.
yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons that people attribute to it, and also because it just makes sense to their own selfish philosophies that are more
Yeah.
anti-biblical. Because it's like, oh well, this way I don't feel judged because I'm the one who judges myself in the afterlife. That's what all the Gnostics and astral travelers say, and it's like, well, that's just the ultimate inversion, the ultimate you can become God, Satan, serpent in the garden type lie on a mass
Yeah,
scale. So it's appealing and sexy to people if they don't have a big foundation, honestly.
perfect.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I have a lot of crazy stuff here. I don't know if I mentioned, I guess I should probably tell people where to find me and my work before I go too crazy. I wrote a book which covers all this in great detail. It's Spirit Realm Shenanigans and Unhinged Rant exposing the psychic fabrications of discarnate dweebs and Nephilim nitwits. And it's embedded with a lot of dumb guy comedy, very South Park, Always Sunny in Philadelphia type vibes, but more retarded. But it's also very serious and filled with a million case studies. Like it's thick. So buy the book. The free audiobook is on YouTube and Spotify. And all my interviews and podcasts are linked in my link tree, which is in my bio of my X and Instagram, which is Sethlehem, Bethlehem with a Sethlehem underscore on YouTube and Instagram, though. And my book and everything and podcasts. Yeah, all there. So reach out to me if you have any questions. I've been trying to answer all that I can. But yeah, man, reincarnation is a Bologna, in my opinion, and keeping in mind the vision control concept and downloads of information, that's what I think is, the main culprit here. But how this happens is kind of complicated because I like to start off telling people about the best evidence in reincarnation is in the Ian Stevenson lore, where he studies children from ages 2 to 6, mostly 2 to 4, getting these memories without going into some regression divination practice, right? And they are getting memories, and 30% of them have birthmarks that match the past life death, which I'm about to get into how that works and operates. So basically, I like to start off by saying the age group that 100% of Ian Stevenson's cases are from, because he doesn't go to regression of adults, because one, they can lie, and two, they can be, he doesn't trust regression totally, and I don't either, but for different reasons. But he thinks the more reliable evidence is in children who, remember this all on their own, quote unquote, which is always ages 2 to 4, 2 to 6. Now, if you study brainwave states and the occult, that all occult practices, all divination, astral travel, meditation, deep meditations, regression of any kind, remote viewing, etc., all these things require a theta brainwave state, which is when your brainwave is in 4 to 8 hertz. And there's many ways of getting into that state. You can be a light trance or deep. It doesn't really matter. You're still opening yourself up consensually to divination and entity contact, whether you know it or not. So, yeah, the consent is a layer here, though, obviously. The brainwave state's the other half. So the brainwave state that you are in when you are a child, 0 to 2 years old, your baseline brainwave state is in is it beta? I forgot. No, delta. So 0 to 2 year olds are constantly, and that's like a waking sleeping state delta. That's 0.5 to 4 hertz for the most part. That's what they're in all the time. And once you hit 2 to 6 years old, and I'm summarizing and generalizing, so it's a little bit detailed, slightly off in some parts, but overall, the consensus is 2 to 6 year olds are consistently in theta brainwave state for most of their waking hours, 4 to 8 hertz. They are already in that primed consciousness state that requires these things, which is probably why you hear so many children talk about seeing entities and seeing things under their bed and getting, hearing noises and all these sightings that children seem to have more. Perhaps that's due to their actual brainwave state being more inclined with that. And I think consents and, having pagan parents might be another opening door as well, which is why these things happen in those pagan countries more often. So, and then you have 6 to 12 year olds are mostly in the alpha brainwave state, and then 12 to 18 plus is like alpha and beta moving up. So your consciousness is actually raising, quote unquote, whenever you are aging from a baby to an adult. It actually is, that is a consistent for everybody. So just keep in mind that all of Ian Stevenson's cases are within that exact window, which is a weird coincidence, perhaps. But it seems to be a pattern not worth ignoring. Now, basically, the explanation for how they could accomplish this massive psyop, the demonic realm, I mean, is they could just find children who are in that brainwave state, which is the vast majority of all 2 to 6 year olds in those years, and then all they have to do is impress a downloaded fake memory or a memory of somebody else that they downloaded onto any kid who's spiritually open. The Bible talks about circumcision, I believe, and how it acts as some sort of ritual covenant with God, and how you do it on the 8th day or something, and it's like spiritual protection to a degree, and otherwise you may not have that. And I'm not saying circumcision is like the only factor here, and that sounds like weird to people, but the Bible does talk about this, and it's really about your parents, like when your parents do a child's baptism on you, it's not necessarily the baptism, I think, that is powerful. It's the intent and the consent given by the parents, which have ownership of you and mold you as you grow. So if you're in a pagan country and your parents are doing witchcraft, or they're worshiping pagan entities, or they're doing anything that, or they're even curious, hey, I wonder who my son was in a past life, that curiousness and belief manifests, this is the real manifestation, as as you permitting them to influence your child, I believe, who doesn't really have much say, which is sad, but that's kind of what the Bible could mean when it says you will get generational iniquity from your parents, because what their actions do affect you. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what's happening here is you're just in, you have parents, and they can be Christians too, but most of these are not happening to Christian children, the vast majority. But if your parents are leaving you open spiritually via the way they live, their lack of prayer over you, their lack of covenant with Yahweh, and the more, I think, doing divination at all opens them up big time and to your children. So all they have to do is find a child and then download a past life memory into him, and then boom, he remembers it, he or she remembers it, and then can tell you, and then they'll have actual memories of somebody else, or at least matching details to those real memories. So that what happens is Ian Stevenson will take these children 2 to 6 years old and take them to meet their past life family, which statistically the vast majority of the time, here's the rules. vast majority is in within 20 to 50 miles from their last life, sometimes 100, sometimes over continents and many hundreds of miles away, but the vast majority are within 100 miles. Now, the reason I believe demons are strategically doing this is because it's strategically necessary. If you want them to meet and create validating mythology and lore, you have to you have to keep them close by so they're more likely to visit, and then they can more likely validate it, right? And then you could just chalk it up to, oh no, their soul is choosing a similar family and nearby because they like their culture. Like, a lot of people hate their cultures they grew up in, and I doubt they would all be doing that so consistently. That's crazy in these awful countries when there's better countries to live in. I feel like, why would they all be doing that and agree to it in advance, which is what the lore says. So where was I? So yeah, I think that is a factor, and then whenever you believe it, the child believes it, plus the parent believes it, that adds a layer of increased ability for them to merge with this child and then give them download information whenever they go meet that past life family. Like, a kid will be 2 years old and he'll go and meet his past life wife and kids, and it's really weird. And they'll try to quiz him, and they'll be like, "Hey, who was I in your past life?" And he'll be like, "You were my sister." And then this other girl will come up and be like, "Hey, remember me? I'm your aunt." And it's like, "No, you were my wife. I banged you." And it's like, the kid knows, and they're like, "Oh my god, you're right." And they try to trip him up, and it's like, well, that's obviously reincarnation. Or your belief, your consents collectively, especially, is allowing a demon to download information to them at the right times, which is very easy for them to do, clearly, in my opinion. And then they will be, oh, I know this, but that knowing is coming from a merged entity, which is allowed to do so because you allowed it. So, playing on our heart's desires.
That's why consent is so important, man.
Yeah, it's hard for people to wrap their heads around, and it sounds unfair to the child, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but in a free will universe, this is the most fair system we could possibly have.
Yeah.
So your
It
parents
just allows you to, it's whatever you allow in, because otherwise, like you're saying, they can't really imprint, download thoughts if they don't have access to your mind. So
yeah, and the kids are not off limits, sorry to say. I know it's not everybody wants to hear, but there's no reason to believe that would be the case. And they're prime and open for this 2 to 6 age-year-old range. So, yeah, so that's all they have to do to fake reincarnation memories, except that accounts for 65 or 70% of the cases. Now there's about 35% of the 2,500 cases in Ian Stevenson's database that has correlating birthmarks. Now, this is where the evidence gets a lot more convincing. Everything else is easily explainable. This is a little bit more, only slightly harder, but I'll get into it. So, for birthmarks, the only extra layer here is for this to be necessary, or for a psyop able to be committed by the demonic agenda, by what we know their abilities are from what we covered in parts 1 and 2. These abilities are known to be had, in my opinion. Now, for birthmarks, all they have to do is find someone with a birthmark, which those are all over the place. They're not every person, but a lot of people have birthmarks. Let's say they have a little patch, or a little hole looking thing right on their chest. Then all they have to do is find anybody within 100 miles or more, within the last, usually, okay, also I forgot to say, most past lives, there's usually a 3-year gap, or 18 month to 3-year gap of time between a death and your next life. Now, some are 5 years, some are 20 years, some are beyond, but most are within 3 years of the last life. So all you have to do is find someone within 100 miles, within 3 years for most cases, who has a death wound matching the spot of anybody's birthmark, anybody who's spiritually open, which is a lot of people in these countries, and then just give them the correlating memory where their death memory will have a matching spot to that birthmark. That is not that hard to do with the billions of people on this planet. That would have been a hard psyop to pull off, a couple thousand years ago when the populations were lower, and also there's no tech to share this mythology, really. It's just local. But nowadays, with 8 billion people on the planet, that is super easy to do, in my opinion. And, demons can just observe anybody with a birthmark and boom, see it, and find someone who died, and they are probably aware of every death that's ever happened to some degree, if not been involved or witnessed it themselves. So all you have to do is match one person to the next. And you have a couple years to do it. So it's not very impossible. Now, there is another layer to this, because some people who have done their research in reincarnation will say, no, what about this one case? And let's just assume this case is true, and it might be. I'm going to have a more schizo, hard to prove explanation for it, but I think I have some backing here. Now, one is they just match people up who have similar correlating data to the birthmark. That's not hard to do for them over years. 2 would be, okay, maybe they can create these birthmarks in some cases. And I think this applies to very few cases, but is more solidified as evidence. And the reason I say this is because I'll get into a case in a minute that actually has this, and it is going off of testimony, which could involve lying or exaggerations or whatever, but I'm going to assume it's true, which it might be, and then base off of that, factor in how it might be the same deception happening. So first of many side quests, though, I should say that there are many, many, many documented testimonies of people having spiritual attacks, spiritual encounters, astral abductions, astral travel, whatever it may be, and coming back after usually a negative time with physical marks, bruises, subdermal rising marks, scratches, patternistic imprints, etc., after these astral attacks. So we already know from that astral or spiritual encounters can have a physical manifestation. And there's many reasons beyond that to believe that. One example I like to bring up is from Nathaniel Gillis. Love you, Nathaniel. Sorry I'm stealing your thing here. But he says that there's one story of an astral traveler he's in contact with who has goes out of body one day after doing it for many years and is meeting with his guides that he's known for decades or years or whatever. And something happens to instigate him thinking that the identity of his guides are deceptive and they might not be who they say they are. So he starts getting this thought, doesn't say anything, just thinks it. And of course, they're able to read his mind. They're controlling the whole simulation. And they change their form instantly because they realize the jig is up. And they change their form to, these, I'll just say demonic like creatures for lack of a better explanation right now, and start attacking him astrally. And he feels real, quote unquote, real pain, which we know they can do based on the first episodes I covered. And it's a simulation, but it feels real. And he wakes up into his body and is screaming and very dramatic and has specific marks on his body, not just bruises, but these are subdermal marks rising from the surface from the inside, and they are shaped in a calculated, specific way. One is an Egyptian hieroglyph, one is the Star of David, Star of Remphan, as above, so below thing, and one is a cross, which may or may not have been upside down, but either way, these demons imprinted 3 calculated specific marks that are shaped like very specific things on the body of this guy as some sort of sigil for whatever purpose, if it's to maintain ownership over him or whatever it may be, consent-wise. Wow. But that is something that is physically documented with pictures, and there's other stories like this, but that's one I like to bring up as, okay, we know they can manifest physical things pretty quickly after you're doing a practice of divination.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason it may be, we know that they can do that, and there's many cases to support that. So keeping that in mind, why is it impossible to say that to an open mother that her baby fetus, whatever's in her belly, is not open to alteration of their pigment cells, which all birthmarks are, is melanocytes, which I might be saying wrong, just getting dysfunctional cell clustering in the fetus, which is not detrimental to their health or anything, and it's just pigment cells. So it's very minor alteration, but we know demons can alter your thoughts, memories, implant and read, download memories, experiences, bruises, etc., astrally, spiritually. Why can't they affect the growth of your pigment cells and make them cluster a little bit in a way that doesn't really affect your health at all? In the womb, if a mother is open, let's say a practicing witch or a cult practitioner of any kind, which many of these people with kids of reincarnation memories are openly, or many other things that could do that. Maybe just your desire to know who your child was in a past life is alone to go, okay, well, you want to know? I'll fulfill it for you, is the consent law happening here. So a reason I believe this is because there's this one testimony in Ian Stevenson's 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation book, which is kind of a hilarious title. And it talks about this uncle guy who's hanging out with his niece, and he is telling his niece, when I die, assuming reincarnation's real, he's like, I want to be reincarnated as your son, which is a little bit freaky and a little bit weird. And I wouldn't feel comfortable with my uncle telling me that. But maybe they were really close. I don't know. Still a weird dynamic. But he tells her he wants to reincarnate as her son, and here's how she'll know if he is. He has 2 big scars from his surgical scars from a back surgery, like a big line going down his spine, and then a smaller line next to that. So that's what he had in his current life. And he tells her that he'll have that in his next life if he dies, which we'll get into why that's problematic in a minute. But anyway, he dies not long after this, and she gets pregnant, has a son within the next few years. Um, and she is not that surprised that her son is born with the exact prophesied birthmarks. Now, when you hear that, assuming this is all true, which it might be, that is indicative really heavily of evidence of reincarnation, and I understand why people would see that way, and as I initially did when I first read it. But there's a couple of fishy things here. One is this is his wound, surgical wound, passing over. This is not a death mark. Typically, it's all death mark related. But all of a sudden, the one guy who prophesies his exact birth wounds to transfer over, all of a sudden, potentially giving up that consent to have his identity stolen, then now is attributed towards this child, which I'm just, honestly, it doesn't make sense that your non-death wounds carry over as well, because if you're just your surgical wounds or wounds from injuries carry over as well as death wounds, that means first of all death wounds should be carrying over if that's the case, and two, birthmarks should be a lot more common and a lot more invasive if it is a lot of heavy wounds and also death wounds showing up in reincarnation cases. It should be way more common, like after Hiroshima, Nagasaki, bombings. Whether you want to believe nukes are fake or not, I lean towards they're real. But I've been on both sides. I get it. Even if it's fake, it's still a ton of people blew up with bombs, no doubt. And you don't have a large surplus of children being born with explosive-looking death wound birthmarks within the few years of 100 miles after these things.
Right.
I looked for data on this. There's nobody claiming there's huge correlate. And after giant wars, shouldn't there be concentrated within 100 miles within 3 years a ton of babies born with like gunshot wounds, explosion looking wounds, etc., because you have millions of people dying in concentrated areas? There's no giant database or collection of data that supports the idea of correlating patterns like this, which if your non-death wound is carrying over, you should absolutely see more of these birthmarks, I think. And I just think it's a little bit of a stretch to say this whole situation's legitimate. I feel like I'm missing something. But yeah, he also did consent to this by giving up his identity verbally. And then his, new mom / old niece, if she believes it or desires it, which some weird part of her, I guess, did, that collectively opens up multiple consents for this deception to take place and for them to affect the pigment cells in the child, is what I believe happened, assuming this story is true again, which it could be exaggerated. And there's not many cases like this. That is the only one I actually remember off the top of my head. There might be other ones. Like there's kids born with stumpy hands and like not grown fingers that are little like balls, and they get a past life memory of them where they got their hand cut off. And I'm like, okay, so you get your hand cut off and then you get to plan your next life and you plan to have a fucked up hand in the new life. Why? If it's balancing karma, why do you get screwed over in one life and then you get screwed over in the same way the next life? Isn't it supposed to do the opposite? It doesn't make any sense. And that's not one that was prophesied in advance, but it was still like they're giving you something that they're trying to make sense of as a transfer, but it doesn't make sense why that would transfer over in a fair universe where they're trying to balance everything out. That doesn't make any sense to me. And now, you had a stump in this life. Now you're gonna have a stump in the next life. Like, where does it end? It's just a little silly. I don't know if you have any thoughts for me.
Or at least a scar, right? Or a birthmark.
Yeah, something like that. But there's no like data that really supports this. It's just, I mean, there's a lot of data, but it's, like I said, falls under the umbrella of these potential scenarios.
Right.
But there's a lot more here, but that's just what I think accounts for the vast majority of cases. That first theory, and then the creation of birthmarks, I think is much less common, but legally allowed in certain scenarios and physically possible based on what we know about their spiritual powers. If they can do a calculated hieroglyphic subdermal imprint, they can blotch a couple of pigment cells in the fetus if they have 9 months to do so, I think. But maybe I'm a psychotic person. That's very possible too. Um, yeah, so I think that was consent law coming in clutch right there in a very negative way.
Yeah.
There's other reincarnation lore which is problematic, which is split consciousness lore. Now, this is the idea that when you reincarnate, some people, not often, will choose to incarnate into two bodies at once or more at the same time. So their soul will be split between multiple people. Robert Monroe, the astral traveler we covered and roasted in part one, claims that his guides told him that, or his higher self told him that he was split with another girl on the planet because he was supposed to fulfill this great mission for them. And if he failed, they were like, she's the backup. But they're like, we want you to do it. But just in case you suck, we got a backup. And you shared her soul. So they told her that. So, these deceptive guides that admittedly promote great theatrics in the astral realm, potentially all fake, are also telling you this. So these are the same entities channeling and telling people this in channelings. The Jameson twins are an example. They are they're these twins that got a little famous a couple decades back, I guess two decades ago, and they are identical twins who claim to share one soul, and they also had telepathic abilities. They could telepathically communicate with each other, totally not because they had a demon attached to them and doing it for them, but they also had shared precognitive visions, such as predicting 9/11. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had a nickel for everybody who predicted 9/11 in a prophetic dream, I'd be a middle class citizen at the very least. There was thousands of people I feel like I heard saying that, and in a Christian perspective, what's going on there is you have demons obviously knowing about 9/11 in advance. I'm pretty sure they knew about it in advance. I don't know. They might have been involved in some way, but assuming they did, they can just have a big event like that happen, and a few days before or a day before, which was most of them, put put a prophetic dream into as many people as they can, and then people will wake up and go, "Oh my god, I saw the future in my dream." And then it's really just, giving them planned out situations in advance that they knew about and then making it seem prophetic. Deuteronomy 13:1 through 3 says there will be people with prophetic dreams that come to pass. Doesn't mean it's legitimate. It doesn't tell you that it's a hive mind Borg doing data analysis, but it is easily implied based on all the data, in my opinion. So yeah, they both had precognitive dreams of 9/11, not special at all, just filters into my whole concept here. And it's interesting because modern new age reincarnation lore sometimes teaches that one soul can incarnate into multiple bodies simultaneously, such as twins or soulmates or oversoul deployments, multiple of them. But the ancient Eastern belief systems of reincarnation are derived from entity contact and channeling, just like the modern stuff. It's the same thing. But those ancient ones, like Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, etc., they all teach that there is one soul, one life per soul, and it's sequential, and it's not like you go back and forth like some of the modern stuff teaches.
Yeah.
Uh, some teach that you only raise in consciousness, so you start as like plants and insects and bugs and dogs and elephants, and then move up to human eventually. And some teach no, you can downgrade if you mess up and go back to an animal. And
Right.
they don't agree with each other, but they're all learning this from entity
And some of
contact.
it gets weird, like with oversouls and
Yeah.
like there's a hierarchy, right? Within the
Yes.
soul, tree of life or
Yeah, but your oversoul, the higher
the
self,
soul
whatever
pyramid,
is.
the soul pyramid, I call it.
That the whole Godhead thing is all.
Yeah.
It's still all you, but it's like 1,000 versions of you from
Yeah.
different lifetimes, all connected into a hive mind. Admittedly, a hive mind, the higher selves are. So keep that in mind. It's a theme that filters into everything. Because they admit to that. A lot of channeled entities admit to being part of a hive mind. They're just advanced, higher level souls, according to themselves. But yeah, these ancient teachings don't teach the same thing as these modern ones. They say you can't share soul. Even Theosophy, which is not that old, 1800s, even they deny split soul consciousness. So how is this happening? And if two kids are reliving the same exact past life memory, saying they're sharing a soul, it's just
Right.
it's just mythology creation, an attempt of that, but really it's proving that obviously these aren't exclusive to one person, and that should be seen as a big red flag. um and there is much more complicated and problematic things here. Ian Stevenson is the top reincarnation researcher. I've already covered some of his work, but people do not like to bring up his other stuff that he talks about. They do not like to bring up his admittance of possession accounting for much of reincarnation cases. Now, he doesn't believe in demonic possession. He believes in ghost possession of actual souls who they claim to be. But I'll read an excerpt really fast just so people know I'm not making this up. Um, in one of his books. In one of his books, he says, foreign spirits, as in ghosts of dead souls, foreign spirits can occupy living persons, completely displace original personalities, and persist indefinitely, meaning possessing them for their whole life. If you ever seen a president before, or like a actor who's really famous, there's probably a lot of those going on, if not other places. But yeah, he has a whole framework on partial temporary possession, complete temporary possession, complete permanent possession after birth, like a lasting replacement. He has a whole framework on it. And he believes this accounts for not most, but a large number of reincarnation cases. And he has whole studies on these exact topics and case studies. And I'm going to go over a few of them. Let me make sure I said everything. Yeah, so he believes that the ghost of a human is possessing these individuals, and they'll tell you who they are. You know, they don't lie about it, or they claim to be telling the truth, and they'll say they were this person, and they skipped reincarnation cycle to go from the earth plane straight into a body of someone who had an NDE. So here's an example. There's this story of, this is one of Stevenson's stories, 3.5-year-old Jasbir Jat, which died for a couple of hours apparently, and awakened apparently a couple hours. I've heard crazier things. Who knows? But he died for a bit, and of smallpox, I believe, and was sick and passed out. And then after a couple bit of time, coming back, had a completely transformed personality and claimed to be Sobha Ram, Sobha Ram, and claimed to be a 22-year-old who died anywhere from 2 to 14 days earlier. The village records were not the cleanest, apparently, but they know that this guy died a few days before this kid did. And this Sab Haram possessing this 3.5-year-old has a mature, adult-like personality and is claiming to be Sabha, who died from falling off of a cart, hitting his head, whatever, embarrassing, and then was guided, had memories of being guided by a holy man, a spirit, a holy man, to possess the young boy and take over his body. Now, I don't know what kind of holy man would promote that kind of behavior of possessing a young boy, and what that would accomplish when they can just go to the heaven realms and reincarnate. What is this holy man doing on the earth plane if they're so holy anyway? Don't they usually hang out somewhere else? I don't know. They guess they got to come here to channel through our bodies and possess us, but it's just, it seems like a weird story. But that's what this young kid possessed by some entity is claiming. Or the alternative is that's a demon claiming an identity of someone who recently died, and it creates mythology. So people are going to find out about possession. You can't deny possession. There's too many case studies. People will deny it, but enough people who are studying will realize it's real. But if we can convince people it's just ghosts as opposed to demons, there's a whole different cosmology to gather from that. It's non-biblical. And it creates a mythology, and it also makes them look not so nefarious, and you'll see why in a minute, but they don't seem to be very nefarious. It's just they just want a body, man. They just want to be in a body, and I didn't want to reincarnate. Whatever. What's weird about that? But you did go into the boy of a 3-year-old, so it's kind of a weird trade-off. That reincarnation seems like a better move, maybe. And they usually deny their new parents and claim to be, I'm a stranger to you. I don't know you, or your customs, or you're like a lower class. Like, there's not many races in India and these places where this happens a lot. But there's a caste system. It's very, wealth based. And so they're very racist about wealth, or whatever you want to call it. And they'll always deny their parents and say, oh, you're a lower caste than me or something. And they don't like their customs. So I'm like, why did you go into the 3.5-year-old boy and take over his body if you didn't want to be part of this family? What did you think was going to happen? You're 3.5 years old. You can't really do much. So it doesn't make sense, logically speaking. But there's more. So there's also the story of Sumitra and Shiva. And Sumitra was this 17-year-old who died in July 1985. And upon revival, she claimed to be Shiva Tripathi, which Shiva died 2 months earlier, apparently, by being literally pushed in front of a train, cartoon style, like some Wile E. Coyote type commercial vibe. So I don't know if she deserved it, but I don't know who gets pushed in front of a train and doesn't deserve it. That's a crazy story. So she gets pushed in front of a train, roamed the earth plane for 2 months, apparently, and then possesses the body of this girl during an NDE, which, why was she allowed to do this? We don't know for sure, but this girl, there's something to be said about potential astral encounters with someone who's having an NDE, and maybe getting promised by a deceptive spirit, hey, you can go to the light, I just got to take over, or you can or if you let me take over, I'll do this. Like they offer them some deal. People have been offered these deals and turned them down in NDEs before. So I think they just get offered some astral agreement, and deception or not, they take it and boom, they're possessed because they have to agree to it, I believe, to be fully possessed. And this girl was fully possessed, and she denied her family. She was her original personality was like not very well educated, not very literate, and her new personality, Shiva, is super fluent in multiple languages or educated Hindi apparently, unlike her own self, and was from a higher caste system and rejected her family and denied them. And I'm like, why'd you possess her if you didn't want to be part of the family? And her parents thought she was possessed by a ghost and believed it. And they even hired Ojas, OHJAS, which are like these spiritual healers who are pagan. So no real spiritual protection coming from it. Anything that happens good will be theatrics, like the part 2 material we covered. And these Ojas basically tortured her and tried to cast this, ghost out, and failed because they go out as they please if it benefits them, and they didn't want to leave. So they had no power spiritually, of course, without the power of Christ. And she's possessed her whole life, and she dies possessed 18 years later or something. Now, there's only one time in her life where they recorded her returning her original personality, and this is documented by the family. And this was about a year and a half after the initial possession. The Shiva was taken over. No. Shiva got a bad fever and got really sick. And fevers are largely known to accompany trance states when they're really bad. So she got a really bad fever, and I don't know how close to death she was, but it was apparently pretty rough. And during those few hours of one day, for a couple hours, her original personality came back, had no memory of being possessed. No, not like you're watching this person possess you and you have no control. It's like you're turned off, which is ideal, I suppose. And she had no memory of any time passing. She had no memory of what's been going on. She didn't know she was possessed. She was claiming to be just confused for a couple hours. And I don't know all the details there, but essentially after what happened? After a couple hours, the other guy came back and possessed and took over her, right? So what I think is going on there is it could be as simple as the demon just was really tired of being sick and was like, I'm going to let you deal with this while it's really bad. And I'm going to come back later because you're not going to be spiritually protected anyway because you're still open and you're not going to do anything to protect yourself. So I think that's all that happened, or maybe there's another reason, but that seems like the simple explanation. And it came back and possessed her till she died. And what it's doing is, though, it's creating local mythology that is hopefully and ideally covered by people like Ian Stevenson, which it was. And then it creates mythology and lore and evidence for reincarnation. But this is specifically also two birds with one stone, because now it's creating lore for possession being ghosts. Oh, not demons, we're just misunderstanding. Any demon that's freaking out is clearly just an upset ghost who's probably a dick at worst, but not really as nefarious as the Bible says. Am I making sense so far? I'm rambling. Okay, hell yeah.
Yes, you are.
Love to hear
making sense.
It's a lot, I know. I never shut up, but it's gotta do, someone's gotta do it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's another story that just doesn't make sense why they would be doing this when they can just go to quote unquote heaven realms and reincarnate. I don't know why possess a body that isn't your own. But yeah, there's another story that's even crazier on the same vein, and it is probably the most documented possession story of all time, or at least definitely possession by a quote unquote ghost. And it's documented. There's over 100 signed affidavits, and Ian Stevenson like praised it for that. So this is like tons and tons of testimony involved in this. So if anybody wants to call it bullshit, it is the story of Mary Laurency Venom. I'm going to try to go off memory here. I'm going to do a decent job, I hope, but there's a bunch of Marys here, and it's in the book The Watseka Wonder, Watseka, somewhere in Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin. It's this town, Watseka, and this girl Mary. Here's the story: is that there's a bunch of Marys. Mary Laurency Venom, I'll call her Laurency or Venom, and then Mary Roff, Roff. I'm going to call her Mary Roff, and those are two kids. Mary Laurency Venom is 2 years old at this time, and Mary Roff is 17 or 18, and they're neighbors living pretty close to each other. And the 2-year-old Mary Laurency's parents are Methodists, not the strictest, we'll find out, but they're Methodist. And Mary Roth, her parents, the 18-year-old, her parents are spiritualist mediums, high-level occultists, pagans, etc. They do channeling, they do the works, okay? So keep that in mind. The spiritualist kid, who's 18 or 17 at this point, is dealing with suicidal ideology, spiritual harassment of many kinds, ends up killing herself, apparently, and having a whole traumatic story there. And then 12 or 13 years pass, and Mary, the neighbor, the 2-year-old, is now, I think, 15 or so, Mary Laurency Venom, and she lived a normal life up until this point, and all of a sudden starts getting spiritual warfare of her own. She claims to be getting visions of angels in heaven, and we know now after the first 2 parts that, demons will simulate fake heavens, fake angels all the time. So that's nothing special. I'm not saying she didn't go to the real place, but judging by what we hear in the following, I don't think that happened. So she starts having visions. She starts communicating with dead loved ones who passed. That's another red flag here. Totally not demons masquerading, which they totally can't do. And then she has like these cataleptic fits and is having like these seizures, and it's just getting really rough for her. Her parents get desperate. They try bloodletting, nasty, and they try other medical procedures that do not have any effect. And these doctors are all witnessing this for months. There's plenty of things that progress. So nothing's working. She's just kind of getting tortured. Pretty sad. And then they get desperate, the parents, and they take her to see the spiritualist medium neighbors with the dead daughter. And they ask them for help because they've, been told that they might work. And all of a sudden, their daughter goes to a session with them and starts channeling this demon, or this apparently starts channeling the dead spirit of their dead daughter, Mary Roth. The dead girl who killed herself 12 years later, 13 years earlier, is now showing up in this other Mary and claiming to be possessing the daughter, like claiming, hey, I'm taking over now. But it didn't happen before, but it's happening at this meeting where what I think is happening, the demon just saw an opportunity and took it, where it was like, oh, this is perfect. I can just claim to be their dead daughter and create a whole story out of this. So I think that's what's happening here. Now, this lasted for 3 months where this girl's possessed, and all the spiritual warfare went away and all the medical problems went away as soon as the demon got full control. So I think what happened is they're getting tortured, spiritually harassed, and then eventually get an agreement to take over in this, astral state or some state. And when going into a divination and channeling, then boom, you give up a lot of permission there, if not additional in your own way. And then boom, possessed fully for 3 months. And the dead daughter of Mary Roth claimed to be roaming the earth plane the past 12 years, never finding peace, and missed her parents, which, hey, if you missed your parents so much and had such great parents, I don't know why you killed yourself. A little weird, but whatever. And apparently missed her parents so much that she denies her family, her Mary Laurency's family, because she's not her anymore, and she wants to go live with her old family, the Roths, and wants to move in with them. And guess what literally happens in real life? She moves in with that family for 3 months.
Wow.
After about like 2 weeks after this was, they allowed it.
Holy shit.
This is a real story. This is highly documented from the late 1800s. So she lives with them for 3 months and is, guess what? A model citizen. Oh, a demon could never do that. They don't know how to act and keep themselves from raping and beating for 5 seconds. That's what people believe. They think demons are really silly and stupid and feral. Not true. They're just like us, just a lot more dark and elaborate and cursed by God righteously. So anyway, but they're capable of anything we're capable of doing, and they're also smarter than us and connected to a hive mind, so they have more reason to dedicate to creating fake mythology. So what's happening here is she's being a model citizen. She's doing chores. She's working. She's being nice to everybody. She is. I forget. There's many examples, but she's being a great gal. And the spiritual warfare is gone. So you're like, oh, she healed her. This is what the story is. After 3 months, she decides, you know what? And she leaves with some fanfare. She says, you know what? I've done enough good here. I've healed this girl. I healed her. And I fixed her spiritual warfare. Didn't call it that, but claims to have healed her from her mental and physical problems. And then says, it's time for me to move on. I got to go to the heaven realms. It's about my time. Okay. Thanks for hanging. A little bit weird and unnecessary, but I guess he did a nice thing. And then leaves, and then boom, the original Mary Lorenzi takes back over and forgets, doesn't remember any of that, which is good. Yeah, I wouldn't want to remember any of that stuff. And lives a normal life and doesn't have any medical problems, any spiritual warfare after that. And the idea there is, oh, well, this ghost healed this girl from any problems, and guess what? It never came back, which means she must have cured her. It's just like the spirit releasement therapy stuff. It's create the problem, create the villain, and then heal it. Hegelian dialectic, and then it convinces people, oh, it wasn't a nefarious ghost. Even it's not only not even a demon, and it's a ghost, and it actually was a pretty nice girl. Smart idea, I guess, if you're trying to create mythology, but it's kind of stupid when in the bigger context of all these things is unrealistic. Yeah. But that is, 3 stories that are Ian Stevenson covers out of many more that show possession is admittedly accounting for, according to the top researcher in reincarnation ever, to account for quite a few cases. So if these aren't ghosts and these are actually demons and they're pretending to be ghosts to create a story and they want you to believe in reincarnation, it kind of makes all the other evidence, whether it's real or not, kind of look a little shady. Like, why, if it's real and there's all this legitimate evidence, like the birthmarks, then why feel the need to create more mythology around it? If it's already real, like, why does it matter to these demons who are obviously deceptive at the very least? I don't see why it would matter unless it's all fake in the biblical kind of viewpoint here. So yeah, that's some fun stuff. I don't know if you have any thoughts yet. I got to hydrate really bad.
No.
Hell yeah.
I will too.
Yeah, stay in your lane, bro. I'm cooking right now.
Cooking.
I don't want to lose the train of thought. Let's see. So yeah, man, it gets, I could talk about the reincarnation lore itself and regression memory quite a bit, but I didn't put as much in my book as I should have. So it's not even necessary as much because, when you talk about what goes alongside it, which we're about to do, it gets really interesting because past life regret, and we already talked about it, I guess, in part 2 quite a bit, honestly, but it was more about the spirit releasement therapy. But there's already examples of that is very sketchy, which I'll recap in a little bit. But next to past life regression therapy, which is going into a trance state, a brainwave state, consenting and desiring to find a past life, which is all the necessary ingredients to cook into a deception and false vision. Next to it, people often do pre or intermission life memory access. So just like accessing your past life memory, you can access intermission life planning memories in the heaven realms. Okay. And there is books by Dr. Michael Newton, Dr. Dolores Cannon, prolific channeler, friend of aliens. There is Helen Wambach, all these people who have long books collectively totaling thousands of testimonies of matching lore. I mean, some discrepancies in the details, some here and there, but overall, matching the overall consensus between these people. Now, thousands of cases matching each other in memories and concepts seems like legitimate evidence of an actual phenomena, an actual location. But under the Christian viewpoint of the hive mind Borg with data analysis capabilities and the desire to deceive us on a mass scale, there's no reason any of this can't fall under that category, especially when you hyperfixate on some of the details. In these life planning memories that thousands of people have had, they are accessed the same way as past life memories and Dan Duval's pre-Adamic memories, which don't overlap with past life memories at all, by the way. That's weird. But yeah, they collectively talk about how these life planning memories are you meeting councils, ascended masters, advanced souls in these higher realms, and they are giving you a life review of your current life sometimes, or they're giving you potential life outcomes if you choose a certain life. They give you options. You can have an easy life, a hard life, a medium life. You can be rich, you can be poor. You get to choose your geographic location, which statistically we know most people choose 100 miles within where they were, but in this lore it kind of branches out even more, which is strange. We know that you can choose your socioeconomic condition, your death, your injuries, your challenges, your relationships. A lot of it's chosen in advance, which leaves little to no room for free will or any meaning if it's all predestined. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With very little variance in free will, apparently. And everybody has life plans they do with life, like soul families. So if a lot of people will have a father in this life and in a past life that father was their wife, like some disgusting soul incest shit like that. It's totally evil and I hate it. Often it'll be family members who are currently family in a past life were like dating or banging it out, and they give people these memories and it's really sick and twisted, and they're like, well, it's okay, we're all just consciousness experiencing itself, it's okay, it's not weird. No, it's weird and it's gay and I don't like it. And there's tons of that. Not all of it's incest, soul incest, but a lot of it is. And it says that you replan lives with the same people. Like even if you got murdered by someone randomly, that was planned in the life plan, and then now you have to murder them in your next life or something. Not always, but often that will be the case. If you get murdered by someone, okay, now you got to murder them in the next life, and you kind of have a choice, but you kind of have to do it to balance your karma. I don't know why being a victim in one life means now you have to be a perpetrator in the next. Why doesn't someone else who was already a perpetrator have to do it for them? No, it's you.
Yeah.
You got to do it. It's just, and there's a million cases I could go into where it's like, this doesn't make sense in like a universe I want to live in at least, but I don't have it prepared today. But if you go into the lore and read it, it'll blow your mind, the shit people are saying with this. But anyway, they will choose all these things in advance, leaving little room for free will, and they will remember this. And I'm like, first of all, if you're coming into the life with an erased memory and they intentionally erase it, I don't see why they're letting you access all this. But, I guess it's Akashic Records. We can access anything if we're spiritually advanced. That's what people will say. Whatever, fine. But it's a little bit weird that they're planting reincarnation lore intentionally in all these different facets of the world through spiritual encounters. Why do they want to wipe your memory and then tell everybody, hey, by the way, it's real? Like, it just seems like, what's the point? Why don't you just start off with not erasing my memory, which people claim to not erase their memory sometimes. I'll get into one example later, but they claim to skip the amnesia part intentionally. And I don't believe it, but it's interesting that people believe that based on memories that were downloaded into them. So this whole concept I could go into for hours, but I'll just focus on one thing here, which is comparing it with other potentially fake memories, which are compiled this specific case, or specific section theme of case studies, which I never hear anybody talk about, is found in the book Cosmic Cradle, Spiritual Dimensions of Life Before Birth. This is 200 plus case studies from Elizabeth Carmen and some of her colleagues, and they compiled tons of case studies and dialogue and all these things of mothers, mostly mothers, some fathers, but mostly mothers, getting spiritual encounters with while they're pregnant, sometimes before they're pregnant, but usually while they're pregnant. They'll get a spirit baby who's 3 to 6 years old usually, or younger. A spirit baby will show up in a dream, a vision, a regression, a meditation, the same theta brainwave state we've been talking about. It will show up in a dream or vision, etc., and it will say stupid ass stuff like really corny child speak. It'll say like, "Mommy, pick me," or "I love you, I'm coming to see you soon." Like it'll be a spirit baby coming to you in a dream, trying to get a bond with you in advance with a little bit, "Hey, I love you, we're gonna do a great." Pointless interaction, unless it's consent farming for a demon. That's a totally reasonable way to do that. But they get these spiritual baby encounters. Sometimes it's many spirit babies fighting over you, saying, "No, pick me. No, pick me. No, I want to be your son." Like, first of all, if you're choosing this all in advance in the spirit realms, why do you have all these like competitors showing up to you in a childlike form? It doesn't make any sense because you're not a childlike form in these in between life memories. You're more of an adult and you have the maturity of an adult. Why are you talking like a little baby now from a cartoon and showing up visually as a shapeshifter as a younger child of yourself if your spirit is actually, it doesn't make any sense. Especially for the ones before you're pregnant, because if you're pregnant, it's like, okay, well, maybe the spirit baby's now been devolved into a spirit baby, whatever. But why is it like 3 or 6 years old sometimes when you're in the fetus? It doesn't make any sense. And why is it no English? And why is it this? Unless it has full intelligence and it's dumbing itself down intentionally. Because it's way creepier for a 35-year-old man to come be like, "Mommy, pick me, I love you." It's way creepier if that shows up than a little spirit baby who's cute. But then again, even if it's real, why is it manipulating you with this false form? It doesn't really seem benevolent. And I'll read some quotes from the book in a minute, just some silly ones, because I want to show people how retarded this book is and what the silly things they have to take on if they want to believe it is. But if even one of these things are not actual spirit babies, which many people will not believe it once they hear what I'm saying, even if one is fake, what does that tell you? Why are they carrying off? Why are they doing this deception? Why would they be doing it other than to consent farm your acceptance? If you say, yes, I'll pick you, I love you, you're my future child, boom, you're giving consent to a demon to influence your child in the future, is what I believe is happening, which shows that they want to do that and they can do that, which might add to the whole birthmark theory, as their goals seem to be oriented around setting that situation up. Nobody's ever, that I can find, recovered a future in between life memory of them visiting their future parent as a spirit baby. Out of all the thousands of cases, nobody remembers dumbing themselves down, shapeshifting into a spirit baby, and going to visit their future mom and tell her, "Hey, I love you. I can't wait to be in your belly." No one's ever recovered that. But the children who apparently are these spirit babies incarnated, a few years pass, and those 2 to 3 year olds, just like the same age as the reincarnation memories show up, they will say, "Hey, I remember visiting you as in the spirit," but it's only the children whose mother already got the other vision in advance. So really, they're just fulfilling the prophecy and finishing off what they started, but they're not doing it to other people, because people, if they had that memory show up, they're like, "Wait, why am I going to my mom in the future when I'm a full mature adult in the spirit and shape-shifting, and why would I do," like, they don't want people to think that's weird, so they're only doing it to people where it's already, like, it already makes sense, it's already normalized. So the child will then get a matching memory to something that happened years ago, or a year ago, or 2, 3 years ago, and it'll validate it to the mother, and they'll go, "No way, I remember that too. That's crazy." But really, it's just correlating visions that are meant to match each other, which they're capable of doing. And you consented to allowing your child to be influenced when you chose to believe that your child is reincarnating, and also this little spirit baby that you gave permission to. It's very elaborate. Consent law is tricky, but they have to play these loopholes.
Right.
It's very crazy. I feel like there's more I'm missing. And also, it's just seeding more reincarnation lore in general, and that whole cosmology. So it's like killing multiple birds with one stone, and it's a little bit creepy. And I'm gonna read some goofy quotes here because you're gonna laugh. You're gonna think this is silly. Let's see. I'm gonna read. Yeah, I'm gonna read quite a few here, but they're fun. This first one says, "As a child, I knew that all the explanations from where I come from did not resonate with me, although I had no words to explain where I came from. As a young adult, I even tried previous life regressions and got some hits, consent given. Even so, they were not my souls. Some were my physical body elementals' previous experiences, and others were experiences of those people near me." So this is someone admitting to you in this book, "Oh, my past life memories were not mine." I think because they're saying they are a star seed, so they only have one life on here. We're gonna get to star seeds in a minute, but they're saying I relived past life memories and they felt like mine, but they actually belong to other people, or they belong to my elemental's physical previous experience, which makes no sense because it's your soul that reincarnates, not your physical body. So I've actually no idea what they're saying there. But either way, they're admitting that they had past life memories that did not belong to them, admittedly so. And there's many cases of that in part 2 we cover, and there's in part 1 a little bit, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But I just find that interesting to mention. Here's an even crazier one. This is a guy talking about his recovered memories of himself in the fetus as a spirit baby. Okay. But he astral traveled as a spirit baby all across the cosmos. And he remembers this because he got a downloaded memory. So he says, "I came and went as I pleased outside the womb of his mother while he's not born officially." And says, "I played anywhere I wanted to in the astral. Lots in the astral that I prove is fake in episode 1, guys. Lots of playtime took place on Jupiter, the planet of growth, and Saturn, the karmic teacher. That is where most of my lessons come from. That is where I hung out. I still do." Okay, so this baby, as a baby, before he was born, astral traveled to different planets and got teachings from spirits. At Saturn's an interesting one. Just put it out there. Saturn worship, weird. And 2, he's saying that he still astral travels there. And if astral travel is a simulation, like I prove basically in episode 1, then that is saying that this is all theatrics and fake experiences from spiritual beings that he has totally given up sovereignty to. So there's an explanation for it all in a coherent way at the very least. I guess most of your audience is Christian, so I don't have to really convince them that hard of this. But
yeah, I mean, there's a pretty good smattering, but pretty much Christian.
Yeah, I'm coming after you, New Agers, if you're listening.
Yeah. Yes.
Lovingly, of course. But now here's where it gets stupider. I have a bunch of smaller quotes. I have so many more in the book, so buy the book if you want more, but I'm just going to read some highlights. Here's one. Either all these are retarded and silly, or they're insightful, showing potential deception aligning with my theory, or they're both. One is, "Rebirth planning was always like watching a thriller movie. So even in this memory they're reliving, they're watching a screen and they're seeing a memory play out on a screen, or they can relive it as their own. It's both, but these spirit beings are admitting to having the capabilities of doing that even in these memories. So it's sort of admitted that they can do something of that nature. 2 is between his second past life and his current life, Thundercloud incarnated in animal bodies. He became transformed into a fish. That's just funny. He's Thundercloud is clearly a spiritual man. I don't know why he downgraded if he wasn't such a bad guy. Did he choose to? Some teachings teach you don't downgrade. Some teach you do. Like I said, it's another discrepancy in the reincarnation lore. Here's a great one. The woman concluded the spirit child seeking a mother paddled up a spirit canoe up a river. So a spirit baby got in a spirit canoe and traveled up a river in a vision. Not weird, and very real. And then says, the spirit child saw me and entered my womb. That's why I'm pregnant, an elder narrating added. White people have a different way. These things happen to black people. Confirmed, black people can get pregnant by spirit babies without sex. That explains so much. Sorry, black people. It's one of your own saying, and I can't help you. But it can't happen to whites. I'm kind of upset. I wish that happened to me. I don't want to make sweet love to have a child. I just want a spirit baby to paddle up canoe up a river. Stupid. Let's see. Heaven gets boring after a while. That's a short one, but it's adding to the idea of they want you to have the idea that heaven is not so much worth looking forward to, even though it's still not a Christian based one. They want us to be concerned with other things. Here's a really crazy one. Meditation was part of Elsa's daily routine for spiritual growth. On a meditation retreat with thousands of people, unexpected thoughts came up during meditation. Because you're in a theta brainwave state, you dummy. These thoughts are the following. This is verbatim, I swear. I'm going to read it. Okay. Have another baby, have another baby, have another baby, Elsa thought. No, I have enough children. You're such a good mother. Have another baby. Have one of us. What a good mother you would make. We want you to be our mother. Come on, have a baby. Have one of us. No, have me. Like it's babies fighting over. It's multiple, right? Fighting over her. And then she says, after 5 days, the souls began to fade out and said, all right, we're going away. You can't have us. I thought, oh no, come back. I will have one. That was a great sales technique. That's the end of the quote. She said all that. Okay, so she admitted that for days, multiple spirits harassed her, wanting to be her child. She had to pick one. She said, no, and they keep bothering her for days. Why are spirit babies for days? Say, pick me, pick me, pick me. No, pick me. Why are they harassing her for days during meditation and then asking her for this? And then and then they go, okay, you're going to miss out. You can't have us. And then she goes, no, it's okay. I'll pick one. And then blammo, consent granted. Why did they have to do that? If you can choose it all in the life plan, why does your mother, who's not even life planning, she's on Earth currently, how do you have to get her to agree to it? That never happens in the life planning lore where you have to get them to agree to it for you. It doesn't make sense and correlate with the other lore. And it's also goofy and stupid. And I'm not done. I ain't done, guys. Also, another one says, a Vietnamese man who refused to drink the spiritual soup of amnesia in the before-birth world surreptitiously slipped it to his dog and said, what the hell? This guy just said that a man in his in-between life memory he accessed remembers ignoring the amnesia soup, because you got to drink the amnesia soup to forget, and he's tricked the Ascended Masters by avoiding it and giving it to his spirit dog, who was right next to him, I guess, with him, and gave it to his dog instead. I don't know how he tricked the Ascended Masters and got them to miss that, but he tricks them and then goes to life and has all his memories, apparently, but still access these memories, later in life, so they weren't really there the whole time anyway, so it doesn't make any sense. But he remembers avoiding that. So that's what you can do in the astral realm. You can kind of skip the amnesia soup, even though I've never heard anybody else say that ever. Maybe they have, but that is a crazy line, and you kind of have to believe it to take on the rest of this stuff. Another one, I have the most memory of lives when I practice mysticism or healing art. You asked earlier, what do people like about this? The past life memories that make you feel special. What did I tell you? They all, not all, but almost all remember being some sort of spiritual healer or mystic or something in the New Age realm that they want them to be in this life. Isn't that funny? They had it figured out so well then. I don't know how they didn't escape the reincarnation loop by now. That's crazy. I made pennyroyal tea to abort the baby. As I was about to drink the tea, a loud, raging voice said, no! I spilled the tea. The voice explained, I am coming to the planet. You are the vehicle I must come through. I said, okay, I'll be the vehicle for you. That's a direct quote.
The hell?
It's consent harvesting, and it's working.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
coming to the planet, insinuating some like alien external type thing. I mean, dude, that's the thing. And then you agree to it, and I don't know why you need to agree to it if they have it in the life plan already. Like I said, so it sounds like consent harvesting, which you don't need in life plans, so that doesn't add up. It's just it's I will be the vehicle for you. That's a very flat admission, and now your child is cursed because of it. You dummy. That's not fair to the child, I know, but this is why you got to break ties with these retards
None of
in your
this is
family.
off limits, right? And this is why
Exactly.
you have bloodline inequity and
Yes.
all the things.
These people start out with a worse hand, I know, but that's just the symptom of a free universe. You know, they still have a chance to convert to Christ, of course, but you know, it's not going to be the same skill level for everybody, and that's sad. But you know, some people come out of it way stronger. Oh, this one's fun. They suited him because they were clean, kept their camp swept up, and sent their women a long way off to menstruate. Let's make that a cultural norm in this country, okay, ladies? Just kidding. I just had to get that out there. Silly. I fasted for 4 years. I don't know who said that, but someone said that in the book. And here's a one that's also inappropriate and funny that I can't help but laugh at. He was crazy drunk when I met him. Dave date raped me when I was 14. I didn't want to be with him except he enticed me with cigarettes and money. I was born with an addiction because my mother had smoked 2 packs per day during my womb time. Besides, smoking was cool. Everyone was doing it. I don't know. That one just made me laugh when I read it, but it's a little bit off topic, I suppose. But that's in this book. That's a type of dialogue in this book, and you have to understand that these are the people we're dealing with. These are the people that are more gullible and more likely to fall for these deceptions. Are the people who talk like this. I'm trying to be nice, New Agers who are listening potentially, but you got some goofballs in your camp. Not that Christians don't. Not saying that
No,
at all.
we do.
Absolutely. But this is all, you know, regression based or happening in visions, dreams, meditations, always a trance state, always a theta brainwave state, which is, you know, the open door plus whatever consents you've given, plus additional consents that they're getting while they're gathering it from you. You don't have to understand what's going on clearly, fully, but if you're gonna allow yourself to be deceived by such retarded tactics, then you're asking for it, I guess. You know, we're at war at all times in this world. You know, you gotta this ain't supposed to be walk in the park. Yeah, and getting into more regression lore. Instead of focusing on past lives, I like to talk about future life memories, which are accessed the same exact way. There is not. I think there's only one book covering this in like a big database of testimony here. And it is something I've never heard anybody talk about except Jason Giorgiani, prolific douchebag and Satanist, who was very mean to me one time, talking to you, Jason. I'm naming names right now, Bennett, to get used to it. Giorgiani, not a fan. Let's do a debate. You have a better vocabulary than me, but I'll demolish you ideologically. He believes a lot of remote viewing data, and he believes like a lot of psychic data. He seems to be discerning of deception, but feeds whatever data he wants that matches his theories into his framework and ignores anything that's obviously deceptive aligning with it.
Right.
So he's very choosy. Great writer. I've read 2 or 3 of his books. Total piece of work. I'll tell you that. But anyway, he's the only guy I've ever heard mention this, and he mentioned it very quickly and uses it as a real evidence of future potential timelines based on a collection of data of this book, Mass Dreams of the Future by Chet B. Snow and Helen Wambach. Now, this is a pretty interesting story here because what we got is, and I read this whole book, it's full of goofy stuff. We'll get to the goofy quotes in a minute, but it's basically 2,500, I believe, people were surveyed. They got past life memories, all 2,500. And then after their past life memory session, they asked them to do future life regression to access a future life in the years 2,100 and the year or within 2,100 to 20 whatever within the 100-year gap and 2,300. Okay. So they would ask everybody those 2 dates and see if they can find a future life then. And here's what happened. This was done in the mid 80s from like 83 to 80 or like 80 to like 85 or something like that. And before I get into the data, I'll mention that Chet B. Snow, the author, did a future regression, not a future life, but his current life in the 80s. He got his future in year 2000. So 15 years in the future. And none of this comes to pass, obviously, but what he gets is a very detailed vision, very detailed download, feels very real like everything else. And it's him where basically a huge cataclysm happened and wiped out large portions of the earth before 2000. Um, Big depopulation event. And then we don't know how many because the grid was knocked out and there's no grid anymore. And psychics have to lead the way in connecting with the world via psychic telepathic abilities instead of like technology, and they use their telepathic abilities for research or for resource gathering and sharing stuff and communication. And he's one of the most prolific out there. He's actually doing his job. He's kicking ass, and he also remembers being part of this community and says that kids are all being taught psychic abilities and everybody's like learning it. And he's also a medium for aliens and contacting aliens for help because the aliens are helping us survive this in big ways. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And they're helping us. They're here to educate us. They're trading resources with us. They're our homies. And it's a very detailed vision. He remembers his death as very peaceful, and he chose to die, I think, or a lot of people in this story do, because they're like, "Oh, I lived everything I needed to. I guess it's time to die," and they just choose to die by meditation or something. It's just kind of creepy. But yeah, he remembers all these details. I'm not remembering it very well right now, but it's a ton of stuff that never happened, obviously, because it's past that time and none of this happened. But it was so real and vivid, hard to argue with, right? But he was like, I'm not going to trust this totally, but he's like, I will trust my data because we have, hundreds of people getting data from these future life regressions. 2,500 were surveyed, but it's important to note only 5.5% had a future life memory in the year 2100, and 11% or so had a memory in 2300. Now, this is strategically done on purpose. I think they could give these memories to everybody if they wanted to, but they're strategically limiting it to a certain percentage because they want it to look like a major depopulation event happened, killed off 95% of the world, and then bam, you got 5% who are able to incarnate. So obviously, all the 8 billion people on this planet aren't going to have all memories because they can't physically incarnate with less bodies, right? So that's the story they're trying to create. And you can tell within the lore that comes out of it, but 11% in 200 years later just shows a gradual increase in population in a natural way. So it shows a sharp decline, cataclysm, boom, sharp, or not sharp, but, steady incline. That's what the data is conveying. So they go, oh, obviously a major cataclysm happened and they're repopulating. That's obviously what happened. Now, that's what if I was a demon trying to orchestrate this big deception, that's exactly what I would do. If I was trying to convince people of a major cataclysm, which, they knew in the 80s, the end times wasn't 2,000 years away. They knew they probably had to prepare for something in the near 100 years. And I think they know more about the timeline than we do. And nowadays it's pretty easy to see where we're at, I think. But anyway, so they had to make it seem like there's a big cataclysm in the next whatever years. The pole shift is what they talk about in the book, which I think is a major psyop. And hydroplate theory explains all the magnetic anomalies of the pole shift much better and in a young Earth context. But, hate on me if you want, guys. Young Earth is totally legit, biased. But yeah, so they are trying to convey the story. And in the story, they have 350 of the 2,500, basically 350 testimonies of these future life memories, which is quite a bit of data to gather, right? So there are 4 different types of population centers in this post-cataclysm world in the next few hundred years. 32% of them, and there's a lot of statistics, there's a lot of data, it's very well done. It's just a lot of baloney. So 32% are living in high-tech domed cities or underground colonies. Now, it's important to note that they say that if you go outside the dome without, proper protection, you'll die because the radioactive material. So it's implying very quickly, okay, yes, maybe a pole shift, but also nukes. So I'm not saying nukes are real or fake. I don't know, but they might be real, and they're trying to create the story that nuclear warfare took off for sure. And they say that many people have died by going outside and their suits, get broken open and they get radioactive poisoning. So that's part of the story being proliferated here. And 32% of those are in these cities that are high-tech, AI run. They talked about AI, maybe didn't call it that, before it was a thing. I guess it was a thing pretty early, but not advanced like it is now. But they said it's basically like very technocratic, Brave New World type vibes. Everybody's eating mush and not very happy, not living the longest lives. Government control is overkill. Um, and yeah, it's just a bad place. 13% of subjects are orbiting space stations, living in space stations, or living off planet. And in 2300, some of them are outside the galaxy. So moving outside of Earth very in a far distance, and they're living with some of them with aliens, working with aliens, some of them not, but they have the shortest lifespans, around like 50 years on average, 56 years, I think. And they ate like total mush made in a machine, and they were unhappy. They were on pills all the time. Had very little purpose or meaning or excitement. Uh, Entertainment based, it's similar to the high tech cities. Some people had purpose populating a new planet or moon that they lived on, but it was just, it's very sci-fi, and I'm sure we have the technology to do some of these things, but I don't buy it. So 28% of people lived in these primitive, isolated survivor communities, not in a dome city, not high tech, and not in a nuclear waste field. So it must not be, it's probably concentrated in certain areas, the nuclear stuff. But they're just living in these primitive colonies, and kind of like cowboy spaghetti western vibes, and growing food, and living better lives than some, but still trading with aliens, I believe, a little bit. I forgot. They might be the ones who aren't, I forget, but they're all trading with aliens except for maybe them. But that doesn't matter as much because 27% of the subjects, they got it pretty good. They're living in spiritual new age communities, okay? They are the only happy group of the four, and they are all telepathic, practicing psychic abilities. They are teaching children telepathic abilities in pyramid classrooms. Cool. They are, very commune like. They eat in big dining halls with everybody. That's nice. I like that. A little family vibe. Um, and they are in constant telepathic communication with aliens, trade for aliens. They say aliens are educational, here to help us, give us technology. The whole rigmarole we've heard before. No discernment of, oh, there's some bad ones out there. Not even that. Not even a good faction, bad faction. Just, I think it's open to that. It doesn't turn it off, but it doesn't say anything about it really in the negative sense. So these spiritual new age communities are, every new age's wet dream. It's perfect. It's very psychic, hive minded, and very happy, just like everybody's past life memories on alien planets that are all perfect, all the perfect alien planets, like the Nordics, where everybody's spiritual, telepathic, and there's no crime, there's no religion, there's no issues. It's the same kind of vibe. They just say it's perfect. Now, if this is a disinformation tag from demons trying to convince you to be a new ager, Gnostic, whatever, this is exactly what I would do. um, and this is all in the future and corroborated by many people who have never met. So the data seems legitimate, right? Because it's so many people getting correlating data. And the details are very correlating in very crazy ways. Um, Even like 10% of people claim they don't know what gender they are. They're either androgynous or they're smooth like a gray alien. They don't have like any genitals. And I find that strange and a little bit gross because everybody should have genitals. I think that's the way we should live on this earth. Just my 2 cents. But they claim that gender doesn't really matter in the future. And I'm like, that's more LGBTQ, very demonic type theology there. So they're implanting all these concepts that are not very foreign if you've been around the block. Now here's where things get stupid again. A lot of these, I said there was like 350 memories of the future lives based on the 2,500 quizzed, and everybody else didn't get it. Now the people who didn't get it, the 90% ish, a lot of them, not all of them, were prompted to look for a future life memory that doesn't belong to you. Try to see through somebody else's eyes, access the Akashic records of things. And not all of them, but guess what? A lot of them did. And they would say they're seeing through their eyes, living it like it's them. It's like getting a past life memory that feels like yours. They're feeling everything. It's the same experience, but it's somebody else's. Accessible in the same way. Now, many people had this, and this is demons using that as a method to get more data into the feed without giving out more lives and messing with the data of the depopulation story. So they have to keep that consistent. But if they say, oh, it's not my life, then that way you can get away with it while feeding more data into the study, simultaneously building this whole consciousness, Akashic records, we're all connected, it doesn't matter, so it makes sense kind of thing to also justify the discrepancies I pinpoint of people reliving other people's lives, which is prominent. Is this making sense to
It,
you?
it is.
You're a smart guy, you know. I'm talking to the audience right now who can't respond anyway. So yeah, so that is interesting, and yeah, I just it makes it more sketchy because you're like, okay, there's another example of people reliving past lives or future lives now that aren't theirs, ones that probably won't come to pass, to be honest. But the data doesn't lie, you know. How could data be
Right.
altered by spirits? That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, man, that book is absolutely crazy. I'm gonna read some outrageous literal quotes from the book because it's so funny, just like the last one. And let's see, what are some good ones here? Yeah, this is too fun. Well, this one's just important because it says nearly 60% of those participating in Wambach's research workshops reported that they had been ahead of her questions while in the light trance state. It soon became obvious that once in the dreaming mind, as she called it, many could bypass the linear aspects of time and memory. What he's saying is when in regression, you would be prompted and the prompting would initiate the vision change. So if you're saying, hey, move to your birthday, it'll switch you to a vision instantly of a birthday memory in this future life, or switch to when you were making sweet, sweet love. It'll switch to a sex memory, boom, at the right time. But it says that within sometimes the vision would initiate 1 to 2 seconds before the question was asked. Now, if these are demons reading your mind and creating a vision around that, knowing that you're going to ask this question before you ask it, that's nothing. That's not a problem. They can do that. But the idea it conveys, if you believe it as not a demon controlling it, the idea it conveys is, oh, consciousness is connected again. I already knew you were going to do that. My spirit knew you were going to say that in the future. So my spirit's getting ahead of it because often they admit that higher selves are helping in this process of revealing. Or for Dan Duvall, Jesus is pulling the veil back of amnesia on the spirit, or your spirit is doing it, which is an external entity you have to ask to integrate. Again, watch part 2 for that. But back on topic, that is just another interesting quote. Another one is most of these get togethers seem to have been positive occasions, with the aliens providing advanced technical knowledge or spiritual wisdom. One report from 2100 AD mentioned contact with humanoids from a planet in the Pleiades star system. Sounds like the Nordics. Nice guys, I bet. That's what the lore consistently portrays in the channeled information. Here's another one. Somehow the Christ had become the twin soul for the planet Earth. What the hell are you talking about? Shut up. Doesn't even make sense. But again, rebranding Christ as something else than what he is. In deeper levels of trance, the subject even takes on the emotional reactions of his alter ego to such an extent that he may temporarily lose awareness of his current identity. Or you're allowing more possession to take place to larger degrees, and this demon is becoming the character you're apparently grasping live memories from. But really, it's just, how are you taking personality traits from a future life memory that doesn't yet exist or even might not exist in this timeline if it changes timelines, which they like to push? How are you accessing his personality traits and becoming like this person? Unless it's a demon playing a game with you, it just doesn't. It just doesn't add up to me. Let's see. A routine of regular daily meditation, renewing contact with one's immortal soul and spiritual guides, practicing tolerance. Yeah, let's all do that and trust everybody who claims to be a guide. They're trustworthy, I know. Anyone can discover they are a star person. Star seeds. We're about to attack them next. Don't worry. 51% reported using some kind of universal credit system based on one's signature or handprint instead of money. Some kind of weird mark of the beast normalization going on there. Just a weird little connection I found. But that's what people experienced in the technologically advanced dome city lives. Here's a good one. A man living on a space colony named Gaylord. That's a good one. Let's see. Walk-ins, which walk-ins is the new age term for possessing spirit, which is always a positive one, by the way, who wants to do it to help. Walk-ins are by no means limited to extraterrestrial spirits. They have voluntarily taken over the adult human bodies with the full consent of their former soul inhabitants to help humanity take a critical transition. So if you're possessed, it's by a walk-in that's trying to help. What about the ghosts that just want to take another body that don't want to reincarnate? That's not really mentioned here, but it's interesting that they sort of overlap. And also just justifies possession as a benevolent thing and well-intentioned. And get into possession lore and see how they react when you try to cast them out. Not the same story. That's for sure. Here's a good one. The youngest reporting dying as a young man at age 25 in a fiery crash between two spaceships off the planet Xenon in 2340 AD. I'm sure there's a planet out there named Xenon, but I don't know who would. I don't know who would do it. It's a little bit on the nose. Maybe that's the English translation of it, but it's a little silly. A UFO experience can be both physical and psychic. It also usually is deliberately educational. Oh, I thought they were just probing my butthole so they could take my seed and put it into other people's DNA. I didn't know they were just trying to teach me something. That's nice. Doesn't really bring up the potential for any negativity in the alien encounters. Let's see. Unable to detect any visible secondary sex characteristics, such as breasts, he reported that he felt his body was essentially androgynous. Gender didn't seem to matter very much. Yeah, just more inversion stuff going on here. Many reports coming from individuals contacted by a group loosely known as the Space Brothers or the Ashtar Command. In the 80s, the Ashtar Command were hot shit. Nowadays, we all know they're, demons. It's pretty obvious through their channelings that they say a lot of goofy stuff in the Ashtar Command lore. So to hear that connected to this is just another red flag for me to go, okay, well, this is obviously not a trustworthy source, and they seem to have control over visions. So that's not ideal. Then you have UFO connections have been received psychically by several hundred different individuals over the past 4 decades using names like Ashtar, Manka, or Hatan, purportedly the galaxy's record keeper and referring to the same intergalactic hierarchical organization said to be headed by no less than the personage of Jesus himself, also often called Sananda by these sources. Oh, Jesus runs the space fleet. Okay. And I guess his name is actually Sananda, so we should call him a different name when we pray to him. Okay, and maybe not pray to him because he's just some like alien leader. Okay, that makes sense. It's more rebranding, but it doesn't align with other channeled sources' claims about Jesus' identity, which diverge aggressively, but always antithetical to the Bible's story. Always. Almost done. Jan found that her present-day grown daughter will become her spouse in 2300 AD. That's disgusting. These demons are playing sick games right now.
The heck?
Another high-tech subject compared his future life to that of a conscious, intelligent machine, seemingly androgynous. Even his name, Synchrotron 2, was mechanical sounding. Dumb, fake future name, stupid, robotic sounding. I don't understand how anybody can justify that as logical. Let's see. For convenience, I will use the masculine pronouns for his story. These are the people we're dealing with. I had to get those out because that is in the same book as Mass Dreams of the Future. It's the same book. All these silly, goofy things are attached to this information. The people having these things are having spiritual encounters with these entities telling them things like this, or having memories showing these interactions with very friendly space brothers. Is it disinformation? Perhaps it's not. I don't know if you got anything for me.
No, I want to hear about star seeds.
Well, lucky you. That's exactly where I'm at. Yeah,
I mean,
man.
I see star seeds. The idea basically just as like reincarnation with a sci-fi paint job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, it's the same. Well, they, starseeds claim to be, for anybody who doesn't know, starseeds claim to be souls that are here for one incarnation. They're not here to get in the reincarnation circle and gather karma. They can do whatever they want. They come here for one life. And according to Dolores Cannon's work, they didn't start coming here until the 1940s. And the first wave came in the 40s, 50s. The second wave was 60s, 70s, 80s. The third wave is the 90s till now. That's when it started. Keep that in mind. This is going to get weird in a minute. They're here to help us ascend to 5D. They're help us to raise our collective vibration. And I'll get into a quote that says something weird in a minute about that. But yeah, there's multiple waves. Each one had an easier time adjusting than the last, apparently. And it's funny because people will talk about walk-ins and starseeds possessing Abraham Lincoln and freed the slaves, and they're like, we're responsible for that. That was us. Abraham Lincoln was taken over by a walk-in. And I'm not saying he wasn't possessed by demons. Maybe he was for some greater cause. Freeing the slaves was great. But, who knows what happened with any president being possessed. I think a lot of them are. But anyway, my point is, there's many bits of lore that say this started before the 1940s, tons. But then these people with Dolores Cannon are saying, no, it started in the 40s, which is silly because now you have to deal with something else that goes along with that. I'll get back to in a minute. But before I get to this crazier part, I will say that, let's see, these people, they will be starseeds coming from either alien planets or directly from source as like a new created soul that's like a fresh, clean slate.
Right.
And they will, so they won't have any memories of Earth or any context, and they're coming from such different, better, nicer, perfect planets or source that doesn't have any experience, that they don't have an understanding of Earth. So to get them adjusted in their soul, even though their memory is going to be wiped anyway and they have a fresh, clean slate, they have a process for getting them adjusted to Earth, even though it didn't seem to work very well for the first wave. I don't know. They say that, what is it? Oh, they talk about imprinting. So they admit to this in the lore. And imprinting is where a starseed will come to Earth and download memories of other people from the Akashic records to themselves, to their own soul, which gives their soul context for Earth so they can adjust the vibes. So they download memories and they relive them like they're their own. So in regression, starseeds can access regression memories of past lives, but it's actually from random people in the Akashic records they stole. Now, they get their memory wiped when they're born, so I don't see the real point of that, but that's what their excuse is. Now, what really happened is people are getting past life memories, and then boom, they all of a sudden get a starseed memory on an alien planet, which are always perfect planets, and they chose to come here to help us, and they remember signing a contract on the alien planet to do so. And what's happening here is these people got past life memories, and then all of a sudden they get a starseed memory, and then the starseed is like, wait a minute, if this is my first incarnation here, how am I getting past life memories, all these lists of them that I've already had? That doesn't make any sense. And then boom, damage control. No. That was imprinting. You took those from the Akashic records, and that's why. That's why you did that. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. So I'm still a starseed, but these past life memories I already had in my bank are just from other people. Okay, I stole them. That's fine. That makes sense. It makes sense in like okay, that explains it, but is it believable with everything else in context here? I don't think so. It seems like damage control because they gave out too many past life memories, and the past life memory people are perfect starseed people, primed and ready for it. So they're like, they can't really give it to much other people, so it's going to be some overlap. So imprinting, I think, proves more on top of reasons why past life memories aren't always belonging to you, as episode 2 covers in great detail. Another thing before I forget. I'll just mention really quick here. It's funny that there's some past life memories people have on alien planets, and the alien planet memories are crazy. But one silly thing I like to bring up is there's these water planets with these like mermaid-like creatures, but it's not the same as the water kingdom on Earth. Like that's a whole other thing we'll get into later. But it's like other alien mermaids who are all telepathic. They're in a perfect society, which the water kingdom on Earth memories are pretty dark and satanic. So it's actually very different. But they basically have no religion, no problems, just like all the other alien planets, no war. And they're also androgynous and live up to 120 years, specifically state that number. I don't know why they're taking another Bible number for years of life. It's just so. Why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep taking Bible stuff and switching it? It's just a little bit on the nose. Now on page,
all these Pleiadian incarnates,
dude, they're priming us for the good cop, bad cop, and the good cop are the sexy Nazi Nordics, which. Isn't it funny? I say Nazi because not only are they German, but because people in the lore have seen them with uniforms that have swastikas on them. And people have said that they were in charge of influencing the Nazi movement of the Germany in the 40s. And that the whole, and then people would say, oh, that's evil. But nowadays, the whole world hates Jews so much, so aggressively so, which, by the way, the Jews who control everything apparently have allowed this to happen with their algorithm control and their alternative media and media controlled opposition people. I don't know why they're allowing themselves to be hated so much. That's strange. But the Bible talks about the world hating Jews in the end times so much, and everybody hates them so much, and it's normal, and all the kids are even making TikToks about it now. They're primed and ready for the good cop Nordics to show up and be like, yeah, we're Nazis. And it's been misunderstood, but yeah, the Jews are actually proxies for the bad cop aliens. I totally think that's what's coming. They're already pre-programming the whole 23andMe story. Oh, there's the 23andMe, the CIA is using them to look for people with alien DNA and the Nephilim, honestly, but they're pre-programming you for the Jews. It's the Jews. I'm not saying I'm not an Israel supporter by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not a Jew supporter by any stretch. If you don't support Yahweh, you can go fuck yourself. But I love you. But at the same time, it's like, why do they want me to feel this way? Is it coming because a bigger psyop is coming? This is off topic, but absolutely, in my opinion, it's layered. But I'm a crazy person. What do I know? So yeah, man, the starseed stuff is silly, and there is I could take so many goofy quotes, but I don't need to do that right now. There is one though that's interesting. It says, the second wave is now in their late 20s and 30s. This was like in the 90s or 2000. They have made the transition to life into Earth much more easily than the first wave. The second wave souls tend to work behind the scenes, often on their own, creating little or no karma. In the sessions I conduct as a hypnotist, this is Dolores Cannon, by the way, if I didn't say, they have been described as antennas that unconsciously channel energy onto the Earth. They do not have to do anything. They just have to be. This energy affects everyone they come into contact with. The paradox is they're supposed to be sharing their energy, but they do not like being around people. Okay, so you're saying starseeds just have to exist, don't even have to interact with people, don't have to do anything good, and they're helping everybody so much just by the vibes. Now, if any, they don't even encourage you to get outside your bubble and share it more. They're like, no, just existing is plenty. Now, one, this is telling you you're special, you're doing all this great stuff, and you don't have to morally progress or help anybody in any sort of way at all to actually make an impact. They don't even encourage it, which is strange. You should at least encourage it. It's so backwards, and it's making you isolate yourself to just look crazier into the new age stuff and be more obsessed with it, go out of body, do whatever, and focus less on interacting with the actual world, just like this astral spirits tell you to do. They tell you to go in the astral as much as you can, practice so that you can navigate the astral realm after you die. They don't even mention moral progression or helping other people at all.
Yeah, the awakening humanity thing, right? Like,
yeah, no, exactly. It's just exist and be there, and your energy will channel automatically. It is such bullshit. I'm shocked that it is not dissected more. I mean, I don't think
like the ego death, the ego inflation, like all that stuff. I don't know why that's not more I mean, that's what they believe.
Yeah.
So
ironically, the people who claim to have ego death on these drug trips come back with the biggest ego ever, and they don't see the irony in it.
Right.
It's
a
so
lot
funny.
of times, yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I'm not saying
this holier than thou kind of, I know
absolutely. And now I don't think ego death, like I don't think ego death is a good thing. I don't think killing, like, bad parts of your ego, yes, but your entire ego represents your individuality, and they want you to absorb into the source, absorb into the hive mind that they belong to. So they want you to forget your own inhibitions and, basically, what's the word when you let go of your sovereignty? Anyway, they want you to join the hive mind.
Assimilate.
Yes, they want you to assimilate. Yes. So they have to make you think ego in general is bad, and it's not. It's just the bad sides of it. Yes, it's a layered thing, but your ego is your personality ultimately, in my opinion. Now, so we've already covered a few examples in this part of people getting past life memories or future life memories that don't belong to them, but they experience it as if it does. Okay, so that's already been admitted. Part 1, part 2, multiple ways, but I'm going to recap a couple in part 2. Because for anybody who's didn't listen to my initial request of watching all of these, or just reminding them, in part 2, I talk about spirit releasement therapy and William J. Baldwin's work, and he is a longtime spirit releasement therapist and past life therapist. And, he says, this is a direct quote, when a client discovers a disturbing memory, it can be a past life personality, though just as often, it is the traumatic death of an attached entity. So he's saying, you need to do spirit releasement therapy before you do past life therapy, because if you don't, your past life memories are often going to be from other spirits, and you're going to think they're your own. Okay? Now, and I compared this in episode 2 to Carl Wickland's work in the early 1900s. His book, 30 Years Among the Dead, is not only does it have no aliens or no soul fragments or no demons, it's all ghosts. He channeled for 30 years, never encountered anything but ghosts, which changes completely years later with these other people. And all of his ghosts come back and tell him, the spirits tell him, that reincarnation is not real, and all the reincarnation memories you've accessed in past life regression all of them are from spirit attachments. And then in the future lore in SRT and the more modern stuff, they say, no, some of it's ghost memories, some of it's your own. But it's kind of bridging the two worlds. So you could just say, oh, well, I guess Carl Wickman was wrong. Some of them he was right about, but a lot of them were real past life memories. But no, because these spirits were dumb and stupid when he first exorcised them and sent them off to the heaven realms and rescued them. But they'll come back months later and say, hey, remember, I'm that dumb spirit you saved. Thanks again. Appreciate you. By the way, reincarnation is not real. It's actually spirit connections, attachments doing it. So spirits come back and tell him after going to heaven, and they say, no, you don't reincarnate. You just keep ascending to different realms. That's what we're doing right now. By the way, many spirits told him that. So how do you marry those two worlds and not see a discrepancy? And then you have Dan Duvall's past life pre-Adamic memories. He says he gets no past life memories, but he gets pre-Adamic spirit memories. Now, is this just demons catering different visions to different people to cater to their belief systems and create different mythology? Sounds like it. Sounds exactly like what's going on. The details are very, very, revealing, and that's part 2 material. But my point is there's many, many examples the lore itself admits people's past life memories are not their own. But we're supposed to believe all these children are getting their own, even though they're in trance states in their waking life and potentially open spiritually. It's the same idea. It's a unified deception going on here, in my opinion. I hope I'm making sense. Let's see. So there's this book that I spend 20 pages breaking down called Initiation by Elizabeth Hyach. And she is a nice lady, not a terrible writer, but dumb as a bag of butter. Now, she wrote this book, and it's basically her spiritual journey to accessing her past life memories. What was she in this past life, you ask? Oh, I'll tell you. A high priestess in Egypt. Her father was the pharaoh.
Of course.
Her father was the pharaoh. Her uncle was the high priest, the highest priest in the entire land, the most spiritual man, the most spiritually advanced. And this was thousands of years ago, no date given. High priestess in Europe, dad was the pharaoh. So very special lady here. And she has a lot of past life memories and details of this past life because she was trying to access them for many years and documented them via journaling these things and tells a whole story. And in these past life memories, there is a ton to dissect. I'm not even going to give you the best bits or the most. I'm just going to give you like 2 that focus on the vision control thing. But there is so much to dissect in this deception, and it matches in patterns with all the stuff we've already discussed. And she has tons of detail and tons of like hardcore history, rebranding of Bible terms and all this type of stuff. But I'll give you a little bit. It's a good book to read. It's kind of entertaining, but it's absolutely bananas. Here's one quote from the book, and this is her uncle, the high priestess, I believe, explaining to her what initiation is. And the whole story is her being a young woman wanting to get initiated into the secret societies and go through their process. And they're like, you're not ready, you're not ready, you're not ready. And she's like, she asked 3 times at different occasions, and they finally go, all right, we have to accept anyone who asks us 3 times. I'm like, I've never heard that rule, but okay. So they accept her, and she goes on this whole initiation journey, learning all the spiritual secrets, and they share with us the secrets that she's getting from these entity-controlled visions. So a whole lot of lore here. Read the book, but there's one part where her uncle is rebranding a lot of biblical terminology in a way that's hard to ignore. And this is like supposed to be thousands of years ago, I think, before most of the Bible was written, but it's using some Genesis terms. So Genesis might have been around at this time that they're claiming to be from. But actually, no, it's after Genesis because they talk about Moses and rebrand his Exodus story actually in another part. But yeah, he says, but now listen to the good news. The good news. Your body is the result of separation. It is the only visible half of your own true self. The other half remained in the unmanifested, unconscious part of your being. By uniting these 2 complementary halves with each other, you can return to divine unity. He's talking about merging with a demon spirit that's claiming to be claiming to be your higher self. That's what it is. You can expand your consciousness until you make the unconscious part of you completely conscious, until you consciously experience the unmanifested. Saying conscious is way too much. It's annoying. Experience the unmanifested, invisible half of yourself, and in this way achieve divine unity with your consciousness. You can merge your consciousness with your own true self, out of which you have fallen, thus forming the perfect unity. In this way, you can experience bliss, experience God, be God. You will achieve unity with God and simultaneously with the entire universe. This means you will be again eating from the fruit of the tree of life. In short, you will have achieved your resurrection and eternal being, and that is initiation. That's like 8 different Bible terms rebranded in one to a new age cosmology. You got separation from God. You got what is it? Tree of the fruit of life, fruit of the tree of the life, resurrection, fallen angels, be God. I mean, it's all Genesis ultimate inversion stuff. Genesis 3:22 says, "And the Lord God said that man has become now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." So it's literally the opposite of what God said to do, what the serpent is saying to do, right? Always the ultimate inversion, always a biblical reference, never the Quran or freaking some Buddhist text, never the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, whatever.
Yeah, right.
Not the Vimana stuff. It's always the Bible rebranding, saying, "Oh, the Bible got it wrong. This is what it was trying to say." It's all spiritual, metaphorical. So just find that a little bit on the nose. And there's another part which is even crazier. Now, in this quote that I'm about to read, what's happening is it's near the end of the book, and she's finally getting her final initiation ritual, which requires, just like the Skull and Bones Society for some reason, going into a coffin and doing a lot of fasting beforehand. And this is all relived in her memory, and starving yourself and going into this coffin and experiencing a vision quest essentially in a coffin, which is all initiated and interacted with from a spirit. They claim it's your higher self, but it could easily be a demon. Now, and there's a lot of reason to believe that. Now, so she's in this coffin for who knows how long doing this vision quest, and I'm about to read the quotes from her uncle, the high priest. And her uncle, the high priest, is basically explaining what will happen if she fails and the circumstances she will find herself in. And it's a little bit ridiculous. He says, "Remember very carefully what I'm telling you now. When you become conscious in one octave and vibration out of the 7 octaves in this vision quest, apparently, you are in tune with this frequency, and its whole sphere represents absolute reality for you. When you have passed the test in 1 degree, you will be taken to the next sphere, and you will realize you are only dreaming on the level below. But if you don't pass the test, that is, if you identify yourself with the events and don't succeed in remaining master of them, all of these dream pictures will remain real for you, and you'll have to experience all of them to the very end as real events in the world of time and space. That would mean your body would die here in this coffin, and you would have to go on dreaming your own dream pictures in countless reincarnations on the long path of mortal existence for many thousands of years while you gradually struggled upward from this lower level to which you have fallen. Every dream is a reality as long as you believe it to be real. When you pass all the tests, you experience all the lives that you would have to experience as a fallen soul on Earth. Free of time and space, you experience them as dreams, awakening on the next level of consciousness. Finally, you awaken to the 7th level in the cosmic consciousness of the self. In this divine state, you become one with the last and highest and only reality with yourself, with God. This is no longer an awakening, but a resurrection." This dude's saying, if you go into this vision quest and you believe the visions are real life, which is very easy to happen apparently, then you will end up having to live in those fake dream realms forever and then reincarnate in a fake reincarnation realm, in a fake realm, in your own dream for as many lives as you need until you figure out that you're in a fake realm. Now, one, they're trying to make the reader think they're insane and they're living in this potential fake reality. That's one thing they're trying to do, make you go insane. 2, they're giving this whole infinite consciousness, there's this whole infinite capabilities with your consciousness, and it's all about what you believe. So if you believe it to be true, it'll happen. So if you believe this world we live in is true, then it will be. But if you believe it's fake and you can surpass it with telepathic abilities and out-of-body work, guess what you can do? It's very scary narrative because getting stuck in a place for thousands of years sounds pretty lame. But I guess that's what we're living right now anyway. So what's the difference? Burp. But yeah, man, that is trying to remember if I'm missing anything. And there's I think 20 pages or something in the book about her actual vision quest. And basically it starts with there's 7 visions, and I don't know if it gives all 7, but there's the first one is literally a demon coming to her, manifesting as a goat demon and saying really evil maniacal stuff and controlling a whole vision. I wonder if I should just see if I find some of it. God, there's Yeah, well, I'll read a little bit of it. She's literally getting a whole vision, which is of earthquakes. Hold on, let me read it. No, I can't find. I can find it, but I don't want to read it because it's too out of my plans right now. Sorry, but the book has a lot of details on it. She basically gets this crazy controlled visions, and she passes each octave by recognizing it's a dream and recognizing the spirit trying to attach to her is nefarious. Which at the end she ends up connecting to anyway, which is her higher self. But the higher self apparently is giving her all these visions to convince her that they need to connect and merge. And she denies it, and then does it at the end. So it's like pointless. And so the demon wins no matter what. But this is all a fake past life memory. So the whole thing's a vision. But in the vision quest, she's getting another vision, which is in the past life memory download, which she has no autonomy in. So it's very elaborate, and they have this level of control. And that is a crazy, crazy book, which pushes all the same deceptive disinformation tactics as all the other stuff we've been covering today. So very fun, and it is about to get crazier. I need to breathe for a moment. We're going on to secret space program lore. I know everybody's excited or probably confused and doesn't know what that is. I don't know how much you know about SSP. Do you know much about it?
I mean, a little bit, not much.
All right, well, I'm gonna blow your socks off, dog. I've listened to at least 30 testimonies, like 2 hours each probably, of these people, and I've read 2 books. Tony Rodriguez's book is one of them, the series Colony Cavalier. It is probably the most outlandish sci-fi lore there is, and in my opinion, yes, it's all fake memories implanted into people. But before I get into all that, I'll explain what it is and a few of the crazy things you have to believe if you think it's real. For one, it's entirely Gnostic in the lore and cosmology it promotes. But basically, it promotes the idea that at least since the 60s, maybe sooner, there's been a deep black project run by a breakaway civilization of humans who are paired up with the draconian reptilians.
Yeah. I mean, I did an episode on shit, I can't even remember, but it was basically about it was about a group of aliens that came and asked for volunteers essentially, or people to come back with them. You know, it was the whole thing, but
yeah,
I can't remember what it was called. That was that long ago, but
I'm sure
but
that
the Draconians, fun times.
Yeah, they say there's different types of reptilians. Some are good, some are bad. Okay, whatever. And draconians, I guess, are some of the bad ones. But what was it? So there's these deep black projects that are run by breakaway civilizations, and they utilize like hired workers or sometimes slaves that they force to go into this work, and they time travel them to the future to serve usually 20 years, and then and this is their physical body, and then they time travel them back after the 20 years is up, wipe their memory, age regress them with age regressing technology to make them exactly where they were, and bring them back to 15 minutes after they left. Because they go into this pod and then come out 15 minutes later, and then they're like, oh my God, I just lived 20 years in space. They don't remember anything at this pod thing. What I think is going on, the memories come back later, the same way all these do. Dreams, visions, meditations, regression.
Right.
They are only left with, I think demons just impress upon them a lot of loose ends of impressions and feelings that they don't know what to do with after they're in the pod. I think that's all that's going on there, and the memories aren't implanted till later when they're in an act of divination or desiring. Because some people want to have answers. They're like, I want to know what happened to me, and boom, a dream vision comes with the answers of the fake memory. But your desire to know a fake thing that doesn't exist, that can't exist in a biblical cosmology, your consent acted as open rights. Not only that, but the consent you get from the process of signing up for this thing. Before these people go in the pod and time travel to the future and also get their memory wiped and all that stuff, they have to sign contracts for what takes 2 to 4 hours, physical contracts, and they're not reading these contracts. So they're signing contracts for hours. And if you think that's not enough consent, I don't know what to tell you. It absolutely is. And they're not reading them. So it's very, from what I've heard, nobody's read them because they rush them. So You have to believe time travel technology, which my part 4 material, which is almost done cooking. It's going to be a time travel debunk. It's faking gay, like a lot of this stuff. And they are going to push that time travel shit, I think, in the near future pretty hard with the whole, oh, we're from the good timeline, and no, we're from the bad timeline, and we got to pick which one we want to gravitate towards. And obviously, we're going to pick the good one, if not something in between. But yeah, I think they're going to do the whole time traveling us is from the future from different timelines, which is stupid. Um, but yeah, the memories come back the same way all these other things do. So keep that in mind. This is not remembered right after the pod situation they're in. I think the pod just gets them into a perfect trance state, and then a demon will leave a lot of impressions upon them and confusion and probably sadness and all these feelings, which they always say they wake up with. So crazy things about SSP lore you have to believe if you want to believe all of it is that there is this interplanetary corporate conglomerate, they call it, the ICC, which is a breakaway consortium of Boeing and Lockheed type companies, and they abduct humans for a slave trade to hundreds of ET species in exchange for exotic tech. Now, I'm not saying we're not exchanging any humans or blood sacrifices or something for exotic tech. I'm sure we absolutely are, but hundreds of ETs, factions, I thought there was like 4, maybe 5. I didn't know there was hundreds, but that's what they promote. And they all do it with each other for tech. They trade humans for tech. No, that's like the currency. So I guess all the aliens aren't all fully caught up, even though they can all time travel. So why would you even worry about the slave trade when you can just time travel to the future, get your good tech from the future guys, and then come back? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
Time travel never makes any sense. It's all stupid, and that's why they have to program it into 200 time travel movies and shows out there. That's why they have to program it in all these ways that are retarded. So also another crazy thing is they say that the moon is a hollow moon, and I'm not saying the moon isn't hollow. I don't know.
Right. But I don't know either. And yes, of course.
But what they add on is crazy. They say a hollow moon and its insides are a giant central control hub where Lunar Operations Command, the LOC, that functions as a multinational, multi-diplomatic spaceport with segregated zones for rival human ET factions and alien factions. So they're all working peacefully together in the moon, but they have all their own sections. It's like the embassy for all the different nations. Which I thought they were all warring with each other through time and space and all these things. I didn't know.
Right.
A lot of them seem to work together if you really study the lore, but whatever. But yeah, it's just that's what the moon is. And if you listen to Jason Giorgiani, prolific douchebag, calling it out again, by the way, he will say that he believes the Nordics who time traveled into the past 250 million years ago, he thinks they were the Nazis who time traveled in the 40s, breakaway civilization into 250 million years in the past, and then evolved for 250 million years to who they are now as the Nordics, and now are traveling to us to help us, and that they escaped Mars when their Mars AI got too heavy from all the data collection, equaling literal mass, and then it kind of imploded the planet to explode the way it left all these marks, and that explains the whole Cydonia thing. And even if the Cydonia, the Mars face, the life on Mars evidence is real, I totally have a way to explain that in a young Earth context, with the pre-flood world being super technologically advanced. The Vimanos, they talk about the spaceships. I think we had portal tech, and I think we had civilizations that were interplanetary before the flood. I absolutely believe that. And that explains the Mars anomalies, by the way.
Well, I mean, and also you have to realize that we have no real concept of the fact that who knows what the angels were doing or any of this. You know what I mean? Like, I've always looked at it this way as like, they're, anyway, I don't know. I don't even know if I want to go into it.
Yeah,
it's one of those things that you understand what I'm saying, though.
No,
is like stuff was happening before we, as humans, were, implanted or put on this planet or created or whatever you want to call it. Whatever timeline wave you want to ride on the surfboard, right? Whether it's new Earth, old Earth, whatever. There was something else going on before. So
yeah, I think that's biblical. Just I don't believe in pre-Adamite humans necessarily, and I'll stick to that pretty strong. But what do I know? I think the Bible assumes that pretty directly.
I mean, at least you're open to whatever.
Yeah, I used to be an old earther. I used to totally get it, and now after hydroplate theory understanding and understanding the lore behind the potential tech we had in the pre-flood world, and what we have now, which we had just as much, if not more, back before the flood. Which we're not getting flooded; we're getting a different treatment. They had a much more aggressive advance of technology, in my opinion, to be doing what they were doing. We just can't see the evidence because the flood literally destroyed it so dramatically, as it would in a situation like that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm open to whatever. But I don't believe in the ancient Mars civilizations. Who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
the angels were out there. I doubt it. But anyway, so yeah, that's more crazy stuff about SSP lore. And one more thing is that is probably the craziest is that a lot of them say that there is a ultra terrestrials, which are sort of like saying angels but non-biblical. Ultra terrestrials set up a force field around the entire solar system in the 80s so that you could keep out alien reinforcements from coming in so that we would have a fair shot at taking them down or resisting their influences, which also doesn't align with all the new age lore in the regression memory pushing all positive aliens, the Stephen Greer type stuff. So for one, but yeah, they say that they have this force field around the solar system, and it keeps also the aliens already inside of it from leaving. So we're stuck with what we got. So it gives us a fair shot. Not attributing it to God, of course. They're giving it to the UTs. Now you can choose to believe that if you want, but if you don't believe that, then you have to question the veracity and legitimacy of these secret space program memories, which have much more crazy stuff. But that's just a good little summary of some of the quick stuff. Because I got a couple more SSP things. I want to go over actual quotes that I recorded here from Jason Sands in a Doom room, which I love the Doom room and I love Jason Sands. I think Jason is deceived, but I think he's a great guy. You're great, Jason. Heart of gold. But I think he's deceived here. He has secret space program memories. He's only talked about them in detail one time, he says, and that was on this Doom room space on X. And I listened to the whole thing and I took notes. And he said, so he's talking about his SSP type missions because he was claimed to be part of the program, and his missions would consist of stuff like eliminating reptilian groups with these advanced guns or rescuing human slaves off planet. More crazy stuff, but that's what he covers there. And Fringe, one of my heroes who I love, Fringe, you've heard of her probably. She's a abductee and hardcore Christian and prolific badass, in my opinion. And she hosts these Doom spaces with Doomer Daddy, another homie, who's actually a strong Gnostic who I'm trying to convert, but I'll probably fail. But I think I'm getting through to him lately.
Right.
No, not really. He hasn't really watched. He said he'd watch my stuff. I'm hoping he does. But I want to do a Doom room, guys. They're not going to let me, but I do want to so bad. Anyway, on top again, Jason's talking about these missions, and Fringe, who is aware of my simulation theory and agrees with it. I don't think she believes in the context that I do because I think it encompasses much more than she might. But she's aware of like astral abductions and how they can emulate physical ones, and they can accomplish pretty much anything. I think she agrees with all that. So she asks him if these missions have any dreamlike material or non-physical elements, aka astral, or any like drugging, etc. So he says there's no drugging involved. It's more like paralysis, and quote, this is his quote now, the ability for some of these NHI to kind of switch you off. All I remember is being in one place at one point where I was in my bed or in a facility and having some awareness, and then being switched off. Next thing I'm in a helicopter, another kind of conveyance, or if it was an NHI craft, I think sometimes that was the case. I was in one of them, and then I'd be switched on. I'd already be moving towards the objective, and somehow telepathically or mentally, I already had a picture in my head telling me where to go, what the first objective was, what I was supposed to do. The only part where I had more freedom was the actual hand-to-hand combat. So SSP memory that he recovered, he is saying he has little to no autonomy except in the hand-to-hand combat, which is all theatrical if this is a simulation anyway, and he's going to win every time. And he also talks about witnessing his SSP friend dying and it being very traumatic and sad, and the emotions are super real, and what comes along with it feels very real, so it makes it more solidified. But I think they can accomplish all those feelings with the simulation. So he also says he's being switched on and off, and he later says he thinks it's from the tall whites. He never sees them, but he believes it's one group of the aliens, so that they're switching his consciousness on and off constantly in the future. But they're already moving his body. He's already walking, and then he turns on, and boom, he's already moving toward an objective with an image in his head. So what is that telling you? They already controlled his body. Why do they need him to be present? Why can't they just use his body if they're already possessing him? Why do they need him to take over and do the combat part if they're already in control and doing a great job? Unless they want to build a narrative for him to give to the people as an asset. It doesn't make any sense otherwise, in my opinion. After that, Fringe says that she's been in similar scenarios, missions, and asks if he knows if he was in his own body or another body. He says, whether I was in my own body or an avatar, I couldn't tell you. And he also said, when I felt pain, it was real pain. And in part 1, I covered death and dismemberment ritual. They can feel real pain in the astral. It can feel real. You can feel pain in a dream. It does, and not always, but it doesn't mean it's really happening to you. And then he says, regarding the memory of these events, he says it's pretty fragmentary because of all the turning on and off. Just reminding you, turning on and off your consciousness, just like in the astral lore I covered in part 1, where they're constantly switching you from one place to another, turning you on, turning you off, moving you to one place to another, with full throwing you around like a hacky sack, consciousness wise. The same pattern in these recovered memories. That's interesting. People don't talk about this layer that much, but one of the few trustworthy guys that I really think is doing what's right out here is deceived, and I think he'd heal from these things a lot easier because he has a lot of PTSD from it. I think it'd be easier to heal if he knew that these were fake. In my opinion, what do I know? So it's very elaborate, and it's only going to get more elaborate here because, well, first I want to finish my SSP convo, which is touching on so another big thing about the SSP lore, which is bananas, is that they constantly push, and this is years ago they started doing this. I don't remember what year it started, but it was probably 2016, if not sooner. Years ago, they've been saying, the recovered memories people, that Donald Trump and his admin in 2016 to 2020 was working with the Nordics, the good aliens, and his admin's working with them. Which is funny because they're the Nazis, and now it seems like he's a slave to Israel, people are saying, which I think is all for show and theatrics anyway. But,
there's a whole theory there too. So,
well, the whole idea is 5D chess, and he might be keeping his enemies closer. That's what the QAnon stuff says. This is space QAnon. They're giving them QAnon ideas in the SSP lore. They say that he's working with them, and he's also fighting for disclosure. That was 8 years ago. No, that was like 8 or 9 or 10 years ago. And now he's fighting for disclosure. But he's acting like he doesn't care that much. Like it's just, oh, you want it, whatever, fine. He's acting like this, but I think he's gonna. This is the reason why I thought he was the Antichrist forever, and I still maybe do. But I wrote in my whole book. I have a whole chapter dedicated towards all the lore that's convincing me he's the Antichrist, and I have a whole chapter on it in my bonus chapter. So I'm willing to admit I was wrong. I don't care about what I wrote, but there's a lot of evidence pointing toward he's this guy. If he's not the guy, because he matches all the descriptions of the man of lawlessness, which is not for sure the Antichrist, but it's implied to most people to be the case. They might be two different people, I don't know, but he seems to match all those characteristics perfectly and so many other things. There's a lot of lore and scripture. But is he the decoy set up to be the John the Baptist for the Antichrist? And I think he's one or the other. There's no way he could be anything outside of that. But it seems like now they're making him tarnish his name so hard, and it seems like now the real Antichrist might be some, Nordic alien, Pleiadian Jesus, or just some alien coming out here saving us from the problematic people in power right now, which would include him. Unless he does this 5D chess reveal, like, hey, I was keeping my enemies closer with Israel. I had to, because guess what? They're controlled by the space Jews. The Jews are controlled by the space Jews, which is with the bad aliens. And that's what they're going to say. And when they say that, he'll see, I had to keep them close because I had to play the game. It's space stuff. And people will go, oh, you know what? That kind of makes sense. That might happen. I don't know. But I can't imagine it's not that or some space Jesus coming to defeat Trump and defeating his whole system, but that does conflict with the SSP lore, so it's very confusing. But the SSP lore constantly pushes he's the guy, pushing his name years ago, which is insane. I see that as defense for the deep conspiracy researchers trying to find the Antichrist. That will turn them the other way, go, oh no, he's working for the good guys. And he's just playing a game, 5D chess with Israel, so that's why he's doing that. I think it was just deflecting him so that people who are most likely to identify the Antichrist wouldn't. So that's a whole complicated topic that I don't have a for sure answer on, but it's one of the two I'm 100 on, but what do I know? I'm insane. So it's crazy. What do you think about that?
I think it's wacky. I flip flop back and forth. Well, my latest episode, I just did a whole kind of thing where I got hit in the face the other day with this Russian cancer vaccine stuff,
Oh
right?
yeah, I heard about that.
And that to me, it felt like I was just like this is stage 2 for like on the road to the mark of the beast, right?
Yeah, like Russia
On the
being the
beast
good guy,
system.
the Christian and everything. I think he's all part of it because he's going
Well,
along with.
and it's not even it. It's just kind of in general. It takes you from like stage 1 COVID, right, to stage 2, which would be cancer, meaning because you're going from a you do this for the betterment of all civilization.
Yeah,
That's COVID. This is you better do it or you're gonna die.
yeah, that's true.
So in turn, what happens then is because they use the term vaccine, but it's not exactly a vaccine.
No.
It's a way to harvest biological material from you. And in turn, because everything is specific to you personally and your cancer, right? And or your biology. And this is how we're going to fix you is because we can code everything to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And give it to you. And so with that, you're just creating an entire system of biological governance. And then you can do anything. Because then, oh, well, your genes, it's everything from Minority Report to, everything. We have your genome.
Yeah, mix that in with the W band and the quantum dot technology and all the microscopic whatever the hell. It's hard to understand.
All of a sudden your genetic code says you're going to be this whatever, and that means you're an other or
it's
whatever.
All data harvesting too. It's more data
Correct.
for the
It's
fake
all
omnipresent
data.
demon hive mind Borg.
Exactly.
And with the data, they can do a lot of things.
They can do almost anything.
Yeah.
So in turn, it's a biological governance play. And they do it through, we're the government and we're here to help. And we'll give it to you for free. So look at us.
Your life for free.
We're all so,
And that's like, and whenever the mark comes, like, is that going to be from the government that we don't trust already? Or is it going to come from the alien savior?
It doesn't matter because they've already got your genetic material. Like they can do whatever.
Yeah, well, I think there's something to be said about choosing to take it or not because it will have a choice.
Well,
it'll be like
that's your last. That is your absolute. I think we've talked about this before. That is your absolute last line of defense.
Yeah,
is saying no, and people. Man, I catch so much flack about tribulation. The tribulation with this too is I feel like everybody has to go through this whole mark offer.
Yeah, I'm not a pre-tribber, absolutely.
No, and that to me, everything that I read, everything that I've read, everything that my research has just pointed me towards. Plus, a lot of really smart people agree with the fact that I don't think I think everybody has to go through this.
Absolutely.
So
tribulation means to separate the wheat from the chaff. If all the Christians are gone, who's there to really sift through? And
what's the point? What's the point of having the mark of the beast then? Because
we all know there's a bunch of weak, watered down Christians out there who maybe need to be tested and deserve to be, and they're not going to pass. And it says that it also says that there will be a great falling away of believers, right? So how would that happen?
And what more would it be? Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, come on.
So
you're gonna die. You take this or you're gonna die. How many people are gonna cave? I'm sorry. I know. I've been all over the world. I've fought in wars. I've done all kinds of everything all over the freaking world. And I see when the rubber meets the road, humans have a tendency to cave, period, to save their lives and their children's lives and all the stuff. I understand. I'm a father of 4. I get it. But there's got to be a point when you have enough discernment. And you know what? If you don't, you're wrong. You're right or you're wrong. You have to make the decision, though. And I
Absolutely, man.
look at this as the ultimate decision is, do I take the mark and survive now, or do I live forever? And that's
No,
kinda how you have to look at it, I'm sorry. I
I agree 100%, man. I
and
think
people
there's
look at
going to
me like
be,
I'm crazy with 6 heads, and that's fine, or 7 heads, or however
well,
many heads.
it's called a remnant for a reason of
Yeah.
people understanding and believing. So
So
I don't feel bad about any
and then
flack.
and then this is what I say, this is where I have to say this, is we get caught, like, you and I feel like get along pretty well. We don't agree probably on a lot, but we get along and agree on the stuff. Like, you and I are not going to argue over the color of the freaking asphalt of the road paved to hell.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I, I'm not going to argue about the color of the freaking asphalt because I know the color of the asphalt, and so do you, and so do guys like Gary Wayne and a bunch of others. It's people that start arguing about the color of the asphalt. Who gives a shit, folks? Who cares? Uh, Everybody, it's fun to go through all the different things and the, flat Earth, dome Earth, freaking, pyramid Earth.
Yeah,
I don't care. I don't care.
those things are
Because it
less
doesn't
important.
matter. It actually doesn't matter because does it? Does it really matter? Actually, it doesn't. I, you know, I, it's fun to talk about, right? But people get so up in the weeds about dumb shit.
I agree, man. I try to not be divisive on that stuff anymore. I mean, I have my opinions about every little thing. Some stronger than others, depending on where I feel
Yeah,
confident in my research. But and I
absolutely.
like to talk about everything that's crazy because it's fun. But ultimately, is if you're a brother in Christ and you're doing and you think you're doing what's right and you're trying to find answers and working for it, disagree on whatever you want as long as you're well intentioned. And
Yeah. And we can always agree to disagree
yeah, I have no problem with
and
that.
still be friends.
No,
And
I
unfortunately, in this day and age,
well,
that
you
can be
gotta
kind of hard, man.
turns out being a real hardcore extremist Christian believer has given me personally a lot of peace and a lot of I'm still a little bit of a asshole in my comedy, but overall for the most part like I treat people pretty well and that comes with
Yeah.
the territory of you being in covenant, so a lot of
And
people who just
have
the label isn't enough.
actual civil discourse, right?
Yeah. I just went on my first new age show today this morning, and it didn't go bad, but I couldn't get into my presentation at all because he kept veering me off. And we were having a really good conversation, and we had disagreeing a lot, but I definitely got through to him a little bit to make him question stuff because he has on astral travelers left and right, and
Yeah.
I got through like 2 out of 26 of my presentation points because he kept veering me off, and I was like asking me like simple questions, and then he started asking me about what do I think about gay people, and I gave him the best answer possible in a biblical framework. And I said, I don't believe they're born that way and all this. And I could tell he didn't like that, but he was nice, but he could have civil discourse about it. And
Yeah.
I have not had any
Correct.
other new agers have me on yet. I got an invite from one guy, but I haven't figured it out yet. But I'm trying to get on any show with people who will throw tomatoes at me. I would love to.
Yeah.
Um, so I hope I probably will get pelted like crazy for that one because I did the gay rhetoric, but whatever. He was nice. He might have me back on. We'll see.
You never know. Yeah, it's just one of those things, man. Like, I mean, I'm into all of it, right? I'm into all the UFO stuff and the cryptid stuff and the genetic stuff and all the things. And I like to see the patterns, right? And I like to put it all together and whatnot. But it's like some things I feel like they matter and some just really don't. But again, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got
There
one,
you go.
and they usually stink. So,
I'm glad I'm nose blind.
just saying.
Yeah, man. But yeah, we got not too much more to go, honestly. I it gets a little bit more chaotic in these next few bits. Yeah, I can get this out of the way pretty quick, I think, and then we can veer off if you want or do whatever. But we just covered how SSP lore is what I believe more false memory implantation, which has a whole Gnostic cosmology to it and a very expansive, many alien species, many factions, many missions, time travel, age regression. You have to take on all these things, and time travel debunk is coming later. But yeah, it's just too many things that are a little bit too outlandish, and the only evidence is spiritual contacts and visions, visions that might be fake, which are verifiably able to be faked. So, and past life memories, which are verifiably able to not be yours, like undeniably, in my opinion, from the evidence here. So, staying on that vein, um, we're going to talk about my labs, and I don't know if you know anything about my labs, but I'm sure you've heard a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, for anybody listening who doesn't know, my lab stands for military abductions, and it's basically the idea that after alien abduction, many people have experienced since the 90s, I think, mostly, getting abducted by the government right afterwards, which is pretty traumatic back and forth. Getting abducted by the government who is like portaling into your room. And I'm not saying we don't have portals, we might have portals, but they portal into your room and pull you out and take you to this underground, deep underground military base. And those are real, yes. But you go there, you portal there, and they will be with aliens working side by side. I mean, obviously the aliens are in charge here, but they're working with them and they're building, I think, a narrative with this because they're questioning you, basically trying to question you to find out stuff that happened on the ship because they want data information on the aliens. But the multiple faction thing is kind of hard to defend once you really study the lore. But even if it is realistic, this is not a great way to gather data and the way they're going about it. And obviously, if you study the lore, you know most abduction memories seem to be totally suppressed and inaccessible, right? Until regression, which I think regression is highly, 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 highly flawed for memory retrieval. I don't know if I trust any of it. I used to trust some because it aligns with the consciously remembered memories from people who don't have to do regression to get their memories, which I trust more. But that could be a form of limited hangout to gain trust. I'm actually working on research right now for a part 5 material, which is going to be regression for abduction memories because I'm now seeing patterns where I'm like, this, if it's regression, it might be divination in all cases, even if it's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I trust any of it anymore, and I think they will give you fake, evil, messed up memories of aliens doing bad stuff if you believe in literal aliens and multiple factions. If you believe in that, they will give you almost anything, I think, because that's what that's what they seem to promote is the multiple factions stuff. Because if you believe there's multiple factions, it seems much less like a demonic unified deception. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Now, my labs is recovered memories in the same way, and I don't know about every single case, but it seems to be, and it's I'll just show you the questions that they ask people, and this is compiled in the book My Labs: Military Mind Control and Alien Abduction by Helmut and Marion Lammer. This is dozens of experience or testimonies from the 90s onward, framing these as joint human ET ops rather than solo alien gigs. And the interrogators ask questions like this. Okay. What did they show you? Did they mention any timelines or bases? Any implants? Okay, one. If you hear that as an experiencer, oh my God, there must be multiple timelines. Where these, first of all, if they know where, are the aliens going to tell them the location of the base they're at? And then you're going to be able to share that information realistically? And then, like, what timeline? Like, if there's many timelines, or you can say, yeah, it was the one where Barney was president. Like, what are you going to say that where they can go, oh, that's the timeline we need to go to and stop them in the future? Like, what is it for? Is it to keep the time war going? Is this how you're getting data? Seriously? This is the best way to get data for that? The implants thing. I mean, yeah, they'll do that too. It's why are they asking when they can just X-ray you? I don't know. Maybe I'm being too rough though. Let's see. Another question is, what did the aliens tell you about their plans for Earth? Is this like alien movies from the 40s? It's you don't know their plans. You have that little of information on what their goals are, and you're saying the aliens. Which faction? I thought there was a bunch of factions. Shouldn't you be naming a specific type? Like I just it doesn't seem like a real way to gather data. It seems like if you hear that as an experiencer, you go, "Oh my God, there must be plans for Earth, and the other aliens don't know about it, and the government doesn't know about it." But if they're all working together, then this is just theatrics, even if it's physically happening. But why physically even do this in a big operation and risk getting caught portaling people to your bases when you can just give them a fake memory, which is just as doable, much easier return on investment, by the way, substantially. Think about that. And then you have, did they give you any messages for the government or world leaders? Really? Like what? I thought you get your memory erased. They're going to give you a message, and then if you were going to give it to the world leaders, you would be doing that anyway. Why? I don't. It doesn't seem like a real story playing out here. It seems stupid. And they're acting like they don't know what their other factions are doing, which is I find silly. With all this tech they have to time travel, they can't figure out the goals. but you're time traveling in a time war and you don't know what their goal is. What is your goal if you don't know what their goal is? Like, it's stupid. Describe any devices or symbols they showed you. Do you know what they do? Are you aware of any foreign objects in your body? Oh, they don't seem to know what the symbols. Are they referring to sigils? Like what is going on here? This crossover. I don't know why they can't just inspect their body to find the objects in their body. It's getting a little weird.
Right.
Did they mention other groups or beings, reptilians, Nordics, anything like that? Or what place or year did they say they came from? Like it's presenting this idea, multiple timelines, time travel's real, multiple factions. We don't know what each other's doing. Like it doesn't. I don't buy it. It doesn't make sense. If they're all time traveling and all able to access different timelines, you know what they're doing, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And how much data are you going to get from a freaking someone whose consciousness was either possessed or turned off or in a forgetful state? It doesn't seem like a good return on investment for them to do this giant project with many people. It sounds like more false memory implantation for the goal of creating narratives that if you go into an interview and talk about it, as these people do, which you're allowed to, they're going to convince any listeners, must be multiple timelines, factions, etc. Any of that existing defeats the biblical narrative, any of that. So all you have to do is believe a little bit of it. And it's doable as hell. So I just think that that's my spin on it. I'm not saying alien abduction is fake, and it's all. I think a lot of the memories might be. I don't know how much, but I believe there's a hybrid beating program more than likely. But it just doesn't. It doesn't make sense in the regression lore that they're getting these stories that seem like too good to be true counter intel. You know,
Yeah.
it seems kind of corny, if anything. Doesn't seem realistic or believable. But that's my radar. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I just, I mean, it's just literally like another overlap, right? Uh with different lore, different. I mean, it seems like again, it's the same pattern over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
They just put new paint on it, right? Um, constantly throughout time as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah, when you really compare them all, there's similar themes and a lot of discrepancies in the details, which is what my whole book covers exponentially. So,
yeah.
yeah, I have one little more rant here, not too long, and then I'm kind of done with my part 3 presentation. But it is, let's see if I can remember this well. It's kind of convoluted. So, staying on the same vein of fake memories implanted for disinformation tactics, which is what I think the last few things were, SSP, obviously all reincarnation in general, yes, but all these past life memories, future life memories, everything is just essentially creating a false cosmology. But some of these create specific counter intel, or divergences from truth in building a cosmology, such as the SSP and my labs. So another one is that I think is harder for people to grasp. Maybe is I came to this new. This is not in my book. I might add it later, but this is I got in an email chain with somebody I really respect, who's a badass mother effer, and this is Emma Catherine, who runs the Imagination podcast. I love her to death. Think she's great. Homies with her husband Gray. He's a badass too. Heroes doing great work. Interviews with survivors, helping survivors directly, in tons of ways. Great work. So I got an email chain with her because I asked to come on her show or at least hear out my theories because I don't know if she understands any of this stuff, and I wanted to make sure she understood this is a factor. To explain the SSP memories and the Water Kingdom memories, which we didn't even talk about, but I'll mention that in a minute again. Because I asked her, and I said, if you don't want to be on the show, I know you'll mostly have only on survivors, but I know you have people on about certain specific stuff relating to this, and I think I'd be a great fit. She said no. She was very respectful, but she was kind of mad at me because I told her that I believe demons can impress false memories on people. And I told her I have a bunch of evidence for this, and she said, no, that's impossible. They cannot. And I said, well, I have evidence. I have quite a bit, if you don't mind checking it out. And she didn't want to, but she said she hasn't studied reincarnation, so she didn't know enough about it. But she denied the idea of memory implantation, right? So I asked her, I said, okay, so you believe the SSP lore and the Water Kingdom stuff? And she was like, she didn't necessarily say no, but she's like, there's another explanation besides memory implantation for these things. And I asked her what that was because I was curious. And she said those fake memories, which she didn't imply all of them are, but we're both agreeing that the abuse is real. A lot of it. I'm not saying no fake memories of abuse ever happened. I'm sure they have, but the satanic ritual abuse, the MK Ultra stuff, the vast majority of that's probably very real. Yes, and that's what opens you up spiritually to these additional fake memories, which, by the way, are a double edged are two birds with one stone. Because what happens is if you get a fake memory with your crazy real memories and you tell it in a testimony, anybody who hears the crazy space stuff who doesn't understand it is going to think, oh, or the mermaid stuff, they're going to think, oh, it's all made up. You're crazy, and delegitimize the whole thing.
Yeah.
Or you're going to believe all of it, and you're going to believe the Gnostic cosmology that comes with it often, and the New Age stuff that comes with it, and it's a win-win. Now, I think Emma's a Christian. I'm pretty sure. I don't know what type of Christian, if she's a reincarnation believer or not, or something, but because a lot of them are, but she denied memory implantation. I was like, well, how do you explain all the children's memories who are 2 years old? Do you think they're all getting the treatment? Well, let me tell you what she says. So she says the explanation for these memories are these people are getting in drugged states, trance states from drugs, and they're taken to a Hollywood studio with actors, scripts, situations, props, etc., playing out the SSP stuff, the Water Kingdom stuff, all of that. And then whenever your mind remembers it later, it fragments it into something that it makes sense of, which creates it into like a movie, basically, because they all seem to be very cinematic, the memories. And she says your brain is doing that to make sense of it. Now, I've heard of stories like this, like one time, I think, and there's probably more, where someone did that in like a mountain and with his cult, like a process like that, and to convince people of stuff. And I'm not denying that there's some level of that possible. I'm denying that accounts for all fake memories, SSP, Water Kingdom, etc. One reason is you describe it, oh, they're getting drugged and they're in this trance state and things are happening to them. They're not like a first person going crazy doing a bunch of stuff. But in the SSP lore, you have the craziest first person, very interactive things happening where it requires your involvement, such as one example is Tony Rodriguez in his book talks about he was on Mars on a mission, and he's with a team, and they get all killed or disappear from him, and he gets his arm slashed off by a giant space bug on Mars. And then he tourniquets it, so he stops the bleeding and is crawling back to his base for like hours, slowly for hours, and he remembers it in detail. And then they regrow and regenerate a new arm with technology at the base. That's one of many. So I don't know how they did that by drugging you and having actors show up and you're cutting off your arm and crawling for hours. But that's one of many examples that don't make sense in that framework. And also, the return on investment is insane here for all these so many fake memories. And the Water Kingdom stuff, what are you, underwater? And they got you some breathing tube or something. And the Water Kingdom memories are crazy. There's not a lot of them out there. Look up Amanda Byes on Dan Duvall's podcast. That asshole, of course, promotes all this stuff. And she's a good woman and she's deceived and she's had real abuse, but she's believing these fake memories and she does a 5-hour interview on it. And it's crazy the stuff she's saying in the Water Kingdom. And it's like satanic stuff. It's not like a good alien life, those type of memories. It's really dark. And one of the crazy things she says, if you that I remember, that if you upgrade in the Water Kingdom, like hierarchically on the scale, your mermaid tail will upgrade to an octopus tail, and there's multiple tails that you switch. What the hell are we talking about here, dude? This is recovered memories. Are these real or I don't know. They say it's like an alternate dimension on Earth. That's what they say. Yeah. Dan Duvall actually says the SSP memories are not your body time traveling. They're your soul fragment being taken out and put into a clone body. But everybody else says it's time travel and age regression technology. So which is it? It's like, why are these diverging ideas coming out? But, Dan Duvall pushes the SSP lore as legitimate, which is all Gnostic, by the way. I don't know how you can align it to the Bible, but so is all his stuff is Gnostic. So yeah, I told her, I said, hey, how does that make sense? And I said basically everything I said here condensed, and I added on a little nugget. And I referenced something I talked about in part 1. I don't know if I told you the whole thing, but in part 1, I referenced sleep paralysis and how Vicky Joy Anderson has that whole concept I stole from her, where sleep paralysis is actually your astral body, and your room you're seeing with your eyes is actually an astral room created to look like it. I talked about that in part 1, more details there, but I told her about that, and I said, have you heard of this concept? And have you heard of the idea that if that's true, and these are a simulation room, which there's a lot of reason to believe, such as the room having discrepancies that don't match your real room, which there's many testimonies of, so that's how we know many of those. There is some stories, quite a few, where people see gray aliens in their sleep paralysis episodes instead of shadow people, and they'll see a gray alien and it'll look surprised. It'll look like, oh no, you see me, and it doesn't like that.
Yeah.
So it
He caught me.
presses a button on its belt. And right when it presses that button, boom, it shapeshifts into a shadow person. Now, if that is a fake memory or a fake simulation, that is disinformation trying to make you think the spiritual phenomenon is more physical. And by the way, actually gray aliens doing the legwork on millions of households a night, probably, of sleep paralysis, which is a crazy return on investment just to what? Like the sleep paralysis, I believe, is, not only to scare you and maybe energy harvest you for the Gnostic side of it, but also
Right.
to get you potentially out of body. And they proposition people to come out of body. And some people agree, even if they look scary. I think there's many reasons to do it, but it's I think one reason is to get people out of body, and they're not successful always, but sometimes they come as pleasing forms to do that, of course. But the gray alien thing, if that's a simulation, it's a psyop. And I said, if they're doing that in a fake simulation to make you think it's more physical, then how do we know these memories of people in the Hollywood studios aren't the same concept? I asked, I said, are these Hollywood studio memories, are these just coming from people reliving them? Like, what I think is happening is that these people having SSP memories and crazy moon trips and all this stuff, they're questioning it maybe. And since the demons can read their mind, they're like, oh, they're questioning it. Okay, I'll give them a fake memory of them waking up in a studio.
Right.
Which is elaborate. So it's kind of like a snip snap, right? And I asked her, I was like, are any of these testimonies coming from people who worked in the programs? Is there anybody working in this program of the movie Hollywood studio stuff, which should have to be happening all around the world all the time, for all these testimonies? I was like, are there any people coming out saying I was involved with that as an actor or as a scriptwriter or as a whatever involved? It would have to be a huge project with a lot of people. And there's whistleblowers from everything. Couldn't find a single whistleblower. She didn't mention any. She kind of avoided the question, but she didn't answer it. But I looked myself and couldn't find a single testimony anywhere of anybody claiming to be a part of such program. Maybe they're just really, really good at covering it up. Maybe it's like Severance, but it's like, it seems too big of an operation to get away with. So I said all that, and I said, if that's happening for sleep paralysis memories of a fake gray alien, how do we know this isn't happening in fake memories to people questioning their memories, so that it gives everybody an answer? It gives everybody their own piece of the pie and an explanation, which is a perfect way to do that. And she did not answer my question. And she just said, this is all disrespect. Like, she kind of was very offended. And I love her to death. I'm not saying anything negative about her. I respect her intentions here, but she thinks, she's been fighting against organizations pushing fake memory stuff to explain even the SRA abuse, like people saying, no, it's all fake. And I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that at all. So she kind of saw that as the same thing. And I'm like, no, girl, it's not like that. But I've been in touch with her man since then. I don't think she knows. Sorry. Sorry to out you, Gray, but he's a homie and he agrees with me. I would say pretty much in full from what he listened to all these podcasts, and he told me he agrees and he likes the work I'm doing. So talk to your woman, Gray. Just kidding. I love you. But they're great. I just wanted to get the word out to people who matter in this field, because they can have, if people can get this in the mainstream of, these SRA victims, boom, I think healing from this stuff might be way easier. I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah.
It's still traumatic, but
you never, of course.
Right. I just think that is a better explanation for all of these discrepancies, is fake memories, vision control. I think that covers literally so many things, and I hate to be so blanket statement about it, but the signs are there.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my spiel.
Man, it's just shy of 3 hours.
You know how I roll.
I do. And I would love for you to tell everyone where they can find you.
Well, you can find my schizo tweets and all my crazy lore on Twitter, X, whatever, which is Sethlehem. I think my username is Seth Kicklighter, my name, but Sethlehem is my display name. Yes. Instagram is similar, but less schizo, and it has most of my concert photography, which is cool, I think. And that's, and all my bangers, and that's Sethlehem _ my YouTube. Follow me on YouTube. I'm going to be posting all my interviews and playlists, clips I make, and I already have quite a few out, and interviews that I do with other people where I'm the host, which is not going to be like a show, but I'll just do it occasionally when I feel like it. And There's a few up already that are very controversial. Please check them out. And that's all Sethlehem _. And then my link in my bio on Instagram and X has my link tree, which has my book, all my podcast playlists, my free audiobook on YouTube, also on my YouTube. and Spotify, and I feel like I'm always missing something here, but it's all on the link tree. So find me there.
Yeah.
I'm going on a nationwide tour right now. I got a lot of shows coming up, I think. So
Yeah.
support my dumb ass.
For sure. Awesome, as usual. Very informative.
I tried.
Yes, sir. All right. And I'm sure we'll do it again.
Yeah, I got more. I'm cooking more right now. Part 4 and part maybe 5. So
gotcha.
Who knows? It's
all right,
a lot
man.
of work.
Always. It's always a pleasure, and good to see you.
Much love, brother.
Yeah. Take care.
I saw another life inside a dream, a name I never knew calling back to me. Golden halls in a violet sky, 1,000 doors where the dead don't die. Something whisper you've been here before, soft like silk from the other shore. But the voice had teeth behind the glow, and the closer I came, the less I know. Was it mine or was it borrowed? Was it truth or just a show? Every angel had a shadow, dancing slow beneath the glow. False light memories floating through my mind. They keep saying it was me in another space and time, but I feel the chain underneath. I see the serpent in the shine. False light memories, you were never mine. They dressed the lion, holy flame, called me by another name. Said I chose the wound, chose the pain. Had they come back again and again. Spirit guide with the velvet tongue, singing songs the dead had sung, but every note was out of tune, like a prayer trapped inside them. Was it healing, was it theater? Was it heaven, was it smoke? If the light has got a keeper, then the door was always closed. False light memories floating through my mind. They keep saying it was me in another space and time, but I feel the chain underneath. I see the serpent in the shine. False light memories, you were never mine. I don't want your past life, I don't want your crown, I don't want the old guys trying to pull me down. I don't need the mirror, I don't need the guide, I don't need another name to know who I am inside. No more cycles, no more lies, no more heaven in disguise, no more whispers, no more sighs, no more borrowed memories in my mind. False light memories floating through my mind. Keep saying it was me in another space and time, but I feel the chain underneath. I see the serpent in the shine. False light memories, you were never mine. False light memories, you were never mine. If it ain't from God, I don't want the light. If it speaks in dreams, I the night.